Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If Guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Broken Issei Found Revenge. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Issei, run while you still can. A woman's voice screamed at a child that was standing in front of her, but she was cut off by a sword, slitting her throat open. The woman made a few gagging noises, but she eventually stopped breathing. "No, mother," the boy that the woman called Issei shouted, tears streaming down his eyes. The man that killed his mother and father soon turned his attention towards the small boy and gave a wicked grin. "Well boy, it seems that you will be joining your parents as well. But I'll make sure that you remember my name. Make sure that you never forget my name," the man said, standing tall with two black fatherly wings on his back. Issei couldn't say anything nor could he move. He couldn't believe that at 7 years of age, he would meet his end. "My name is Kakabeel. Make sure you remember that in the afterlife," the man known as Kakabeel said, raising his sword in the air. Issei closed his eyes and waited for the impact. He felt a sharp pain on the right side of his face. Issei screamed like he has never screamed before. He was holding his right eye so he could try and stop the bleeding. Kakabeel then kicked the bow in the stomach, sending him across the room. Issei's back smashed on a nearby wall. Still alive. For a human, you don't die as easily. But that doesn't matter. I'll end your life now, Kakabeel said, approaching the fallen Issei. Issei could only watch as his death came closer and closer. Issei's life began flashing before his eyes. To the friends he made in school, to the grateful moments that he spent with his parents and the rest of the Hayatu family. Kakabeel stood before the fallen boy. He grabbed him by the throat and pulled him up to his feet. Issei began choking by the sheer power behind Kakabeel's grip. Kakabeel then let go of Issei's neck. Before Issei's feet could touch the ground, Kakabeel decapitated Issei. Issei's severed head fell on the cold floor with a small thud, the same with his body. Kakabeel smirked at his handiwork and laughed. He then disappeared. Divided by, a voice said within Issei's head. Issei's eyes snapped open and he found himself surrounded by flames. He looked up and saw what looked like to be a giant red dragon. "Who are you?" Issei asked weakly. The giant dragon said. What do you mean by new host?" Issei asked. D-Drag said. You can bring me back to life." How?" Issei asked. D-Drag said. "So all I have to do is give up my humanity?" Issei asked. D-Drag nodded. Issei looked around the area that he was in, but there was nothing but flames. He then turned back to D-Drag. I accept. I'll give up my humanity," Issei said. D-Drag nodded once more. Everything around them began to light up into a bright light. Issei shielded his eyes, but everything went black. Divided by. 10 years later, Issei's eyes snapped open from his nightmare. He put a hand on his forget and noticed that he was sweating. He pulled the blanket that was covering his body back and sat down on his bed, his face in his hands. He gave a long sigh. The same nightmare, coming back to haunt him every single night. It never let him find peace. Neither do the voices in his head. The voices were screaming the same thing every single time. "Issei, run as fast as you can. Remember my name in the afterlife. My name is Kakabeel." Issei gave a silent growl at the name of Kakabeel. He forced the voice to go quiet and he stood up from the bed. He exited his room and went straight to the bathroom. He stripped out of his clothes and entered the bath. When he was finished, he wore his school uniform. Before he exited the bathroom, he took a glance at the mirror. He ran a finger at the scar that ran across his right eye. His right eye was now blind, losing its natural brown color and went to a light milky blue color. He then ran a finger at another scar that was on his neck. The scar that was formed when he was put back together by D-Drag. Issei sighed once more. He exited his bathroom and went downstairs to the kitchen. He made himself a bowl of rice with some orange juice. In a matter of seconds, Issei finished his breakfast. He put the glass in the bowl in the sink. He then went over to the living room and picked up his school bag. He had to thank his uncle. He was the one that enrolled him into the Kyo Academy, which was previously an all-girls school. His uncle also told them that he didn't like to talk very much, so the teacher will introduce him. Issei took his spare key into his pocket and exited his house. He locked the door and made his way to the Kyo Academy. He honestly didn't know what to expect. It's been 10 years since he's been to school. 10 years since the incident. 10 years of being nothing but an empty shell. During the past few years, he even wondered as to why he decided to live. Why did he ask D-Drag to revive him as a hybrid? Why didn't he choose to live his life in the afterlife with his parents? The answer is obvious, of course. He wanted revenge. He made a vow that if he finds Kakabeel, he will rip his head out. And it was something that he was surely going to do once he gets the chance. He looked to his left and saw a sign say Kyo Academy. He went past the gates and headed for the entrance to the school. He then saw a teacher with purple dark hair and dark purple lipstick waiting at the entrance. Once she saw him, she walked towards him. "Are you Hayatu Issei?" the woman asked. Issei nodded. "I have been waiting for you. I am your teacher, Ms. Keiko. If you would please follow me and I will show you where your classroom is. I will also get a student to give you a full tour of the school later on," Ms. Keiko said. Issei nodded in understanding and followed Ms. Keiko inside the building. Once he entered, he made quite a first impression. All the people that were present were staring at him, specifically the scar on his eye. He closed his one eye and just ignored the stares and the whispers. Ms. Keiko stopped in front of the staff room. "Wait here, I have to get my stuff for the class," Ms. Keiko said, entering the staff room. Issei sighed and leaned back against the wall. He then heard footsteps coming towards him. He looked towards the sound and saw two students walking towards him. One was bald and had his eyes closed while the other wore a pair of shady-looking glasses. They were both approaching Issei with smirks. "So, I hear that you're the transfer student. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Madohama," Madohama said while pushing his glasses up. "And my name is Matsuda," Matsuda said while opening his eyes. "And we are the perverted duo," they both said loudly, earning a couple of dirty looks from girls. Issei raised a brow at the two. He honestly could care less about who they were, but he knew something. They must be the two most hated people in this school, especially by the girls. Now, you may be asking yourself, why did these two approach me? Quite simple really, we want you to join us. Together, we will forge upon a new name called the Perverted Trio. Madohama finished loudly again. Issei looked at a few people that were watching the situation. A lot of the girls were shaking their heads at him, as if saying please don't join them, while a few male students were nodding their heads, saying for him to join. But the answer was already clear for Issei. He looked at the two and shook his head. "So, you don't want to join us, eh?" Madohama said, with his head down. "Oh well, one day you'll find it in your heart that the decision you made today was wrong and you'll come running back at us, pleading to join our group," Madohama said, confident in his words. Matsuda agreed with him with a smirk of his own. "Matsuda, Madohama, you two get to class right." Ms. Keiko was cut off by Issei, who put a finger on his lips and shushed her. Ms. Keiko looked at Issei with a curious expression. Issei then turned his attention at the perverted duo. Both of them just stared at him, not knowing what he was about to do. Issei glared at the two, which made them back off a bit. When Issei took a step forward, they took a step back. "Hey buddy, what are you going to do?" Madohama asked, scared by the glare that he was receiving from Issei. Issei said nothing as he continued to approach them. Finally, they remembered that if anything happened, it was still 2 against 1. Both of them smirked and stopped taking steps back. "You do realize that it's 2 versus 1 right here, don't ya?" Matsuda said with a smirk. Issei then grabbed both of them from their throats and lifted them up from the ground, choking them. The students that were present were watching the scene with awe and shocked by the power of the transfer student. Issei kept his glare on while choking the life out of the 2 boys. They both started to turn blue from the lack of oxygen and were about to pass out. "Hayao to Issei, that is enough. You can let them go," Ms. Keiko said. Issei turned and faced her. With a small sigh, he let the perverted duo to live. They both fell to their knees, gasping for air while coughing heavily. "All right man, we get you. We won't mess with you ever again," they both said as they ran away from Issei. Issei then turned his head towards Ms. Keiko. She gave a small sigh herself. "Even though I didn't approve of your way, I think this will tone those 2 perverts down a little. Also, try to avoid getting into fights, especially in school," she said. "Come now, let's get to class." The bell is about to. She was cut off by the sound of the bell going off. "Go off," she finished with a sigh. They both went to the 2nd floor and walked down the corridor. After a few seconds, they stopped at a classroom with the Psi 2B on it. Ms. Keiko turned to look at Issei. "Okay, you wait out here. I'll call you in a minute," Ms. Keiko said. Issei nodded. Ms. Keiko opened the door to the classroom and closed it. Issei waited until his cue to enter. "Today, I would like to announce that we have a new student. You can enter now," Ms. Keiko shouted. Issei opened the door and walked in the classroom. He heard some whispers about him, like how he handled the perverted duo and about the 2 scars that were visible on his neck and face. Ms. Keiko cleared her throat, making the students to stop whispering. "All right class, his name is Hayao to Issei. He is 17 years old. The reason that I'm doing the introduction is because he rarely speaks. I would like you all to take care of him. And please don't go asking him about how he got his scars. He won't answer you, even if you tried." Ms. Keiko finished. "All right Issei, you can sit beside Ai. Ai, raise your hand." Ms. Keiko commanded the girl known as Ai. The girl in the back put her hand up. She had brown hair with green eyes. Issei saw her and walked towards the empty desk at the back, near the window. "All right everyone, take out your history books and turn to page 47. Began Ms. Keiko. Issei took out his history book and opened it to page 47. He then looked out the window, already bored. He just wanted the day to end. The bell for lunch rang not too long ago. Issei was the first one to get up. He exited the classroom and went towards the bathroom. He knew where it was, since he passed it during the time when him and Ms. Keiko were going to the staff room. He entered the bathroom and opened of the sinks. He splashed some water in his face and then looked at his reflection in the mirror. His reflection began to change into another figure. The figure had long black hair, a pale face and red eyes, with a smirk across his lips. "Remember my name. My name is Cockabeel, Cockabeel, Cockabeel." The Cockabeel illusion kept saying his name again and again. Issei growled and punched the mirror, shattering it. He noticed that there were a few pieces of on the mirror, so he looked at his knuckles. There was a small cut on his hand. Issei sighed and licked the wound, cleaning it. They soon stopped. Issei exited the bathroom and headed towards the canteen. Once entering, he noticed that every table was taken, so his best choice was to eat outside or in his classroom. He decided to eat outside, since he liked the peace and quiet. He paid for his lunch, which was only 2 pieces of white bread. He exited the building and sat down by the nearest tree. He opened his first white bread and took a bite. His opinion on the school right now was pretty alright, despite a few annoying people here and there, like those 2 in the morning. He opened his second white bread. Before he could take a bite, he felt like someone was watching him. He looked in front of him and saw a small girl sitting in the grass. From what Issei could tell, she had white hair with 2 cat clips on her. Once the girl realized that she was watching him, she stood up and walked away. Issei shrugged and continued to eat his lunch. He found it a little weird that she was staring at him, but he didn't care that much. Once he finished his seconds, he lied down on the grass and stared up at the clouds. He gave a small sigh of relief. Peace and quiet, just how he liked it. He then felt his eyelids beginning to close. As much as he didn't want to see the same nightmare over and over again, his urge to sleep was bigger. He fell into a deep slumber. At the old school building. And, checkmate, looks like it's another lose for you, Aquino, a redhead said with a smile. My, it seems I can't beat you at a game of chess, Rias. How are you so good at it? Aquino asked with the same smile. Concentration, a good strategy and years of practice. Rias said. Do you think that you could give me some pointers in case of a rematch? Aquino asked. A master tends to keep his secrets. If you want to get good, then learn how to play the game. Rias said with a small smirk. Ah, Rias, that was mean. Aquino said with a smile on her face. Just then, the door opened and in stepped a short girl with white hair and gold eyes. I'm back, President Rias, the girl said in a monotone voice. How does the transfer student seem to you, Kaneko? Does he pose a threat? Rias asked. He looks like he's about to snap, but other than that, I don't think he's a threat. Kaneko said. Keep on monitoring him. I feel like at some point, he might prove a valuable ally or a very dangerous foe. Rias said with a hand on her chin. Kaneko nodded and headed towards the exit. Rias stopped her. Kaneko, one more thing. I feel like the fallen angels may have taken an interest towards him. Follow him on his way home and see if a fallen approaches him. Rias said. Kaneko nodded once more and exited the room. My Rias, it seems like you have taken an interest in the boy. Aquino said with a smile. Yes, I feel like he's special, Rias said. Aquino said nothing and they both started playing a new game of chess. Back with Issei. Issei snapped his eyes open and leaned forwards. He was breathing heavily with sweat running down his forehead. He wiped his sweat on his shirt and stood up. He turned around to leave, but collided with someone. The girl fell to the ground, but Issei was still standing. He looked down and saw that the girl had long black hair and her eyes were violet. I am sorry, I wasn't looking where I was going, the girl said. Issei didn't say anything, like usual, but he did offer his hand to the girl. The girl looked at his hand and hesitantly took it. Issei picked her up. Thank you, she said shyly. Issei nodded and started walking towards the entrance of the school. Wait, the girl shouted. Issei turned around and looked at her with a raised brow. You might not know me, but I do know you. I see you crossing the bridge on your way home. Your name is Issei, right? The girl asked. Issei looked at her suspiciously, but nodded his head slowly. My name is Yuma Amano. Pleasure to meet you, she said with a small bow. Issei nodded once more and turned around. She stopped him again. Wait, I have something to ask you, she shouted. Issei sighed in irritation and turned to look at the Yuma once more. Would you ever consider going on a date with me tomorrow? Yuma asked with a small blush on her face. Issei stood there thinking for a moment. Eventually, Issei shook his head. Hey, why not? Are you busy tomorrow? She asked. Issei nodded once more. Then how about when school ends? Let's walk home together, she asked a little desperate. Issei sighed once more. There was no way she was going to take a no for an answer. Issei nodded his head. Really? Thank you very much. See you when school ends. Meet me at the entrance, Yuma said as she started to run inside the school. Issei sighed and did the same. He went to the second floor and entered the classroom. And just when the bell rang, he sat on his chair and waited for the Ms. Keiko to enter. After school, once classes ended, Issei put his books inside his bag and exited the classroom. He was one of the last ones to leave the classroom. He walked down the stairs and was met with Yuma. Hello, Issei. Are you ready to go? She asked him. Issei nodded. They both exited the school gates and took a right. They were both walking in silence, the sound of their breathing enough for Issei. Drake asked his partner. Issei nodded mentally. Drake said, falling back to sleep for the time being. Suddenly, Yuma stopped walking. Issei kept walking, but turned around once he noticed that she wasn't walking next to him. Issei, can I ask you something important? Yuma asked while slowly walking towards him. Issei nodded. Once she was close enough, she leaned towards his ear. Can you die for me? She whispered in his ear. Issei wasn't shocked by her question. He expected her to ask him sooner or later, but he decided to play for a little while and nodded his head. Yuma gave an evil smirk and her school uniform began to disappear, replaced by a short black dress with a small, light purple jacket on top. 2 feathery wings came out of her back. Good, this makes it easier for me. Any last words before you die, Issei? She asked with an evil laugh. Issei put a hand on his chin and pretended to think. He then shook his head. Oh well, goodbye Issei. May you rot in the darkest pits of the underworld, she said while forming a light spear in her left hand. One last thing, My name is Rainier. I used you as a fake one to get around, she said. She then threw the spear, which successfully impaled Issei in the chest. Haha, Cockabeel will be happy with this, Rainier said, laughing. Once she looked at Issei, she noticed something strange. The light spear she threw impaled him in the chest, but he was still standing. Suddenly, Issei grabbed the spear and pulled it out of his chest. He looked at it for a small while before throwing it to the side. It instantly disappeared. What? I killed you. How are you still standing? Rainier asked in shock. But she soon put another smirk and summoned another spear in her hand. No matter, this one will kill you for sure, she said as she threw it at him. This one hit him in the shoulder, but like the previous one, he pulled it out. How are you still alive, you worthless human? Rainier asked in anger and shock. She threw 2 more spears, one hitting him in the abdomen and the other hitting him in his stomach. Like the previous 2, he pulled them out and threw them aside. What the hell are you? You're not human, Rainier screamed. Issei grew tired of the situation. He slowly started to approach Rainier. Stay where you are, she screamed as she threw even more light spears, but didn't manage to hit her target. Enough of this. I'll see you again, you human worm, she said as she took flight. Phew, thank Azazel that I managed to get away from that. Whatever he was, Rainier said to herself. For some reason, she stopped going forward, even though her wings were flapping. She also felt something grab her legs. She turned around and saw Issei, with a pair of 2 red wings on his back and a red dragon gauntlet on his right hand. Why you're a dragon, Rainier screamed. Issei then turned around and looked at the road. He then threw Rainier back down. Once she made contact with the road, a large crater was formed. She tried to stand up, but Issei put his foot on her back, preventing her from getting up. Issei then grabbed both of her wings and began to pull them. And no, please, not my wings. I'll do anything, just please don't pull them off, Rainier pleaded, but her pleads fell on deaf ears. Issei began to pull harder, while Rainier's screams filled his own pleasure. He then stopped pulling for a second, pulling them suddenly that they teared of her back. Rainier screamed in pain as she began rolling on the ground. Issei then grabbed her hair and pulled her back to where he was. He held her head in place so that she was looking directly in his eyes. Diedrag said from the gauntlet, I'll never answer to you, Rainier screamed. Diedrag gave a small sigh. Diedrag said, his voice falling quiet. Issei then grabbed her by the throat and began to choke her. Rainier summoned a light spear in her hand and began to stab Issei's shoulder, but this did not make Issei stop. Rainier found herself losing consciousness as she let the light spear she was holding drop to the ground. Her eyes began to roll to the back of her head. Issei, deciding to stop toying with her, pressed a little harder on her throat. He finally heard that satisfying snap of her neck. Issei let go of her throat, letting her lifeless body fall to the ground. Issei gave a small sigh. He was a little disappointed that he didn't manage to get information on Cockabeel's location. He picked up his school bag and began walking the rest of the way to his house. Once arriving to his house, he dropped his bag on the floor and went upstairs to the bathroom. He grabbed a piece of cloth and the bottle of povidone. He applied some to the cloth and took his shirt off so he could disinfect his wounds. He applied the povidone on his chest, then his shoulder, then his abdomen, and then his stomach. Once he was finished, he picked up 3 bandages and rolled them to where he was injured. After he was done, he went back to his room. He lied down on his bed and looked up to his ceiling. Today was somewhat of an interesting day for him. He began to wonder what other surprises were in store for him tomorrow. He decided not to think about it, as he was tired. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep slumber. Issei opened his eyes and sat up on his bed. It was one of those rare occasions where he didn't get the nightmare and was allowed to sleep for once. He stood up from his bed and walked to the bathroom. He undid the bandages and applied a bit more povidone on his wounds. He opened his medicine cabinet and grabbed 3 new pairs of bandages. He rolled them to where his injuries were. Once he did that, he grabbed his shirt from his bedroom and headed downstairs into his kitchen. He wasn't hungry at all, so he decided to skip breakfast for today. He looked at a clock on the wall and noticed that it was 7:13. It was time for him to go to school. He went to the door and put his shoes on. He then grabbed his bag and put the spare key inside it. He slung the bag over his shoulder and exited his house. After walking for about a minute, he noticed that Rainier's body was still on the road. He looked to his left, then to his right, and finally behind him. He grabbed Rainier and slung her dead body over his shoulder with ease. Since he wasn't that far away from his house, it was a good idea to drop her there and maybe dispose of her body in the weekend. He opened his door with his key and threw Rainier inside. He closed the door and locked it. He then began walking towards the school. Of course, there was nothing he could do about the large crater, but at least no one would see a dead body lying in the middle of the road. Once he arrived at school, he looked at the giant clock that was on the school. From what he could tell, the time was 7:26. He still had 4 minutes till class, so he should hurry up a little. He entered the building and right off the bat, he noticed that the 2 perverts from yesterday were running for their lives. They were being chased by 2 girls that were yukatas and in the hands were kendo sticks. "Come back here, you perverts," one of the girls shouted. "You're not getting away from us that easily." The other one shouted, "Ah, please spare us. Hey new guy, protect us from the evil girls," Matsuda said as he and Madohama hid behind Issei. Once the girls noticed that they were hiding behind Issei, they stopped dead in their tracks. They looked at him and started to back off a little. Issei knew that they were scared of him, but he decided to give the 2 girls what they wanted. He grabbed Matsuda and Madohama by the collar of their shirt and dragged them forwards as they screamed for him to stop. Issei dropped them right in front of the two girls and walked off towards the stairs. He heard one of them mutter a thank you. He then heard the perverted duo scream in pain as the sound of kendo sticks coming in contact with the two perverts echoed throughout the school. Before he could start walking up the stairs, he saw the same girl from yesterday, the one that was staring at him. She looked at him with her gold eyes. During lunch break, come to the old school building. The president of the Occult Research Club wants to speak with you, the girl said as she started to walk the other direction. Issei looked at the girl weirdly and shrugged his shoulders. He didn't want to go, but at the same time, something was a little off about her. Diedrag's voice rang inside Issei's head. Issei hasn't seen a devil before, but by what Diedrag taught him over the past 10 years. He told him all about the fallen angels, the devils, the exorcists, and the angels. But he decided to push the meeting into the back of his head as he entered the classroom. And just in time before the bell rang, he sat down on his usual sit as Ms. Keiko entered the classroom. All right, take out your mathematics book and your mathematics notebook. We are going to work on some slops, Ms. Keiko said. During lunch, once lunch arrived, Issei decided that he would first buy his usual lunch. When he finishes, he'll head out for the old school building, which he could easily see from outside. He went to the canteen and bought himself 2 pieces of white bread. He then went to his usual spot under the tree. He opened the first pack of white bread and took a bite. As he was eating, his mind began to travel to the small meeting that he was about to have with the orc. Of course, he didn't know what to expect. That white-haired girl that he saw earlier was supposed to be a devil by Diedrag's standards. So, he could suspect that she's not the only devil inside the school. Maybe there are more in the old school building or the orc. He finished his first white bread and then looked at the other. He decided to eat the last one on his way home, so he stuffed it in his pocket. He stood up and made his way to the old school building. Once arriving, he raised his guard in case of a sneak attack. He doubted that they would attack him in school territory, but he still needed to be careful. He stood outside of the door and waited a bit. He then grabbed the handle and opened the door, closing it once he entered. He looked in front of him and saw the small white-haired girl waiting for him in a set of stairs. "Follow me," she said as she walked up the stairs. Issei followed her up the stairs while looking at his surroundings. The building looked more of a mansion, despite how it looked outside. Once they reached the top of the stairs, they walked forward. They reached a pair of 2 doors. The white-haired girl opened one of the doors and went inside, Issei following. He closed the door. In the room was a big coffee table that had trays of sweets and tea. There was a big desk at the end of the room and behind it was a red-haired girl. "We're back, President Rias," the white-haired girl said as she sat down on one of the sofas in the room. She then grabbed a chocolate biscuit from a small tray and started to eat it. "Good job, Kaneko," a red-haired girl said that was behind the desk. She looked at Issei with a smile. "So you must be the transfer student that I heard so much about. As you heard from Kaneko, my name is Rias Gremory. Since there are a few more of us, would you prefer to meet them first, or would you like me to start with the question now?" Rias asked, the smile still on her face. Issei just shrugged, not caring either way. "Since I have a little work to do, you can sit down and relax for the meantime," Rias said as she continued what she was doing. Issei walked to sit down on the sofa opposite of Kaneko. He relaxed in his sit and looked up at the ceiling. He gave a small sigh and closed his one eye. He could sense it. The red-haired girl is a devil as well, and a pretty powerful one too. "Remember my name. My name is Cockabeel." Cockabeel's voice rang inside Issei's head. Issei opened his eye, still staring at the ceiling. He began to hear their voices again. "Issei, run. Run as fast as you can." His mother's voice then ranged inside his head. Issei gritted his teeth. This was the aftermath of not having the nightmare. Not that he wouldn't hear the voices if he did have the nightmare. But he still hated it. Still alive. For a human, you don't die as easily. But that doesn't matter. I'll end your life now. Cockabeel's voice rang once more. Issei gave a low growl, which thankfully no one heard. He tried to force the voices to go quiet for the meantime and he succeeded. Just then, he heard the door open. He looked towards the direction of the door and he saw 2 people walking in, a boy with short blonde hair and blue eyes and a girl with long black hair that was in a ponytail and violet eyes, which resembled Rainier a bit. "Ah, you're all here. Good. Now we can start the meeting," Rias said, smiling. As she said that, all except Issei went near the big desk that Rias was. "Let's start by introducing ourselves again. My name is Rias Gremory," Rias said with a small bow. "Kaneko Tauju," Kaneko said in her normal monotone voice. "My name is Yuudo Kiba, pleasure to meet you," Kiba said, also with a bow. "And my name is Akino Hinjima," Akino said with a smile. "Now, from what I heard around the school, your name is Issei Hayaudu, correct?" Rias asked. Issei nodded. "Now, from what Kaneko told me yesterday, you fought and successfully killed a fallen angel. I want to thank you for that. But the real question is, are you a threat to us devils?" Rias asked, as hers and the other members' black wings emerged from their backs. Issei looked at them for a small while. He looked down at his right arm and saw a green light. He extended his arm forward and the red gauntlet appeared on his arm. The boosted gear. Rias trailed off with shock. Diedrag's voice was heard from the gauntlet. "Our Red Dragon Emperor?" Rias asked in shock as the other's eyes widened. Diedrag said, "Curious question. What exactly is your quest? Riaz asked with a brow raised. Diedrag went silent for a moment. Diedrag asked Issei. Issei gave a long sigh and surprisingly nodded his head. Diedrag said. Again, Riaz and the rest's eyes widened at the revelation. Why, you want to find one of the leaders of the fallen angels. For what exact purpose? Riaz asked. It was the only word that escaped from the gauntlet. Our revenge. Why? What exactly happened? Riaz asked. Diedrag said, causing the members of the orc to raise their brows. Wait, I just realized that Issei hasn't spoken yet. Does that have something to do with what you said? This time, Aquino asked. Diedrag said. Riaz, who was taking a sip of her tea, widened her eyes and started to cough. The others just stared wide eyes at Issei. 10 whole years without uttering a single word. Is that even possible? Riaz, who has now stopped coughing, asked the gauntlet. Diedrag said. Everyone was silent. They didn't know how to respond. Suddenly, Riaz stood up and walked to Issei. She grabbed one of his hands and put it close to her chest. Is there anything we can do to fix him? Riaz asked, surprising everyone in the room, save for Issei. Diedrag asked, surprising everyone in the room again. They pulled a little closer to hear Diedrag speak. Yes, it's something that I would definitely want to know now, Riaz said. She was surprised by herself. She didn't expect to feel that much concern for just one person. Diedrag said. Everyone was basically at the edge of their sits, waiting for Diedrag to speak. Diedrag spoke Issei's last words to the orc. There were a few moments of silence in the room, when suddenly, everyone screamed at once. Issei was walking home after his meeting with the orc. After Diedrag's statement, Riaz said that she would like to prevent Issei from taking his own life, if possible. The others agreed to help as well. Issei gave a long sigh. He just didn't understand as to why she'd like to help someone like him. He was even surprised by her offer, turning him into a devil and joining her peerage. Issei thought about it, but in the end, shook his head, declining her offer. He still remembers her disappointed look. But she understood and let him go, but she also said that the offer would still stand. He took out his spare key and opened his door. He closed it and locked it. He let his school bag drop to the floor as he looked at the body in front of him. Since tomorrow was Seta, he could go and bury her body near the end of the day. He went to his fridge and grabbed milk. He put it on his table and went to one of the cupboards, grabbing a bowl. He then grabbed some chocolate-flavored cereal. He poured the cereal in the bowl. The milk then followed. He grabbed a spoon from a drawer and went to sit on the sofa, opening the TV. As he sat down, his mind wandered to one of the agreements that Diedrag accepted. Riaz accepted the fact that he didn't want to become a devil, but she then proposed in joining the occult research club. Issei was about to decline, but Diedrag beat him to it, accepting the offer. Diedrag explained his reason to Issei. Issei thought about it for a while, but he agreed in the end. True, he is good at working alone, but him finding Cockabeel alone might take a few years. But with help, he could lower the time of the search. After finishing his cereal, he looked at the clock on the wall. The time was 10:43. He put the bowl in the sink and filled it with water. He then went upstairs to take a bath. He took his clothes off with the bandages. Before entering, he looked at the wounds that were caused by Rainier. They were all closed. Since he was now a dragon, his wounds heal 3 times faster than the original human time. He entered the bath and began washing himself. You can take all the medicine you want, but you will never get rid of me. I will always be in your self-conscious. I will always be here to torment you. I can see your struggle. Nothing escapes from me, not even you. Issei clutched the side of his head as he exited the bath. He knew he forgot to take something these past 2 days. He forgot to take his medicine. After the incident with Cockabeel, Issei's uncle took him to the doctor. After an examination, the doctor said that he was suffering from depression, extreme paranoia, and maybe dementia. But the most worrying was schizophrenia. His uncle asked how the schizophrenia was triggered. The doctor said that it might have been during the incident. There is no known single cause of schizophrenia, said the doctor to Issei's uncle. The uncle then asked if there were any other illnesses or trauma that he could be aware of. One issue that the doctor said to be careful on was of a panic attack, since he did experience the death of his family. The doctor then gave Issei some pills. He said to take 3 every day, at breakfast, during lunch, and at dinner. The good thing, Issei managed to get self-control over his panic attacks over the last few years, which caused them to be quite rare. His schizophrenia was the only serious problem, aside from his depression, extreme paranoia, and maybe his dementia. Issei dried himself in a towel and quickly went downstairs. He grabbed a cup and filled it with water. Issei then opened one of the drawers and grabbed his bottle of thorazine. He put one down his throat and soon drank the water. You can't get rid of me. See you soon, Issei. It was all that the voice said before going silent. Issei gave a small sigh of relief as the voice finally quieted down. For now at least. Issei went upstairs to his room and fell on his bed. He soon fell into a deep slumber. Inside Issei's dream, Issei's eyes snapped wide open. The first thing he noticed was that he was in the school's courtyard. He looked around, but there was nothing. Only the school and the blue skies with white clouds. Suddenly, the sky turned red and the clouds turned black. Issei then felt a sharp pain on his chest. He looked down and saw a sword that was impaled in his chest. Issei shakily turned and saw no one. So the brat from 10 years ago is still alive. I must say I'm impressed, a voice said. Shadows began to form a figure in front of Issei. First were the legs, then the arms, then the torso, and then the wings. The man had long black hair, red eyes, and from what Issei could count 10 black feathery wings on his back. Issei recognized him easily. It was Cockabeel. It was what I expected from the holder of the boosted gear and the host of the Red Dragon Emperor. But I want to at least get a good fight out of you, Cockabeel shouted with a grin on his face. Before Issei could blink, he found himself on the floor, deep cuts all over his body. He saw Cockabeel walking towards him with a grin on his face. Cockabeel had coming down his forehead and his lip was also bleeding. I must say that I'm somewhat disappointed in you. I expected you to at least put up a good fight. But it seems I expected a bit too much. Oh well, this time you won't be able to revive yourself, so that is another brat down the drain, Cockabeel said as he summoned a light spear in his hand. He raised his hand in the air and impaled it into Issei's head. End of dream. Issei gasped as he sat up on his bed. Sweat was trickling down his forehead as he let out short shaky breaths. D-Drag instructed Issei on what to do during his small panic attack. Issei gave a sigh of relief, feeling better now. But he agreed with D-Drag on one thing. That nightmare seemed realistic. It was almost as if it was trying to tell him something. But he decided that it was another nightmare, so it probably meant nothing. Issei stood up and went to the bathroom. He took a quick shower and went downstairs to make himself breakfast. He had enough to make himself a bowl of rice, so he probably should go to the store and buy more. Issei then filled a cup with water and took one thorazine pill. He put it in his mouth and drank the water. He gave a sigh and sat down on his couch, rubbing his eyes. Since there was no school today, Issei decided to spend the day home and then bury Rainer's body at night. But for now, he'll go buy some stuff that he needed. He took his key and exited his house. As he was walking, Issei still couldn't get his mind off that dream he saw. It was strange. He felt like he should be more cautious now. Issei managed to push his thoughts to the back of his head as he entered the store. After buying the stuff that he needed, he exited the store and walked back to his house. Stand still, I'll make you feel better. Trust me, Issei heard a voice say from right across the street. Issei looked at the direction of the voice and saw a girl kneel down with her hands extended towards a bow that was about 8 years old. The girl was wearing a white veil on her head and a black teal nun outfit. She had long blonde hair. Suddenly a green glow emitted from the girl's hands. After a few seconds, the boy stood up with a happy grin on his face. He looked down at the nun. Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, missus, the boy said. He then ran off. The nun stared at the bow with a happy smile herself. Issei was surprised by her healing ability. He realized that it was a sacred gear and a pretty powerful one as well. D-Drag said. Issei crossed the road and approached the kneeled nun. The nun looked up and saw Issei staring at her. See, can I help you with something? The nun asked slowly, a stutter in her voice. Issei extended his hand to her. The nun smiled and gladly accepted his hand. Now that Issei was closer to her, he saw that she had green eyes. The nun looked at him with a smile. Thank you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Asia Argento. It's a pleasure to meet you. What's your name? Asia asked with a small bow. Issei gave a small bow as well. Issei cleared his throat, but ended up coughing heavily. It's been a while since he cleared his throat from the mucus that he had since the last 10 years that he spoke. Are you okay? Do you need help? Asia screamed in worry. Issei only raised his hand as he stopped to cough. He gave a sigh of relief as he recovered from his cough attack. Thank God, you're okay. Now can you please give me your name so that God can give you his love? Asia asked with a relieved smile. Issei pointed at his throat, or more importantly, his vocal cords. He pointed at them and shook his head. What does that mean? You can't speak? Asia asked. Issei shook his head. You haven't spoken in a while. Asia asked once more. This time, Issei nodded. So your voice is basically gone. How sad, Asia said in a sad tone. Issei nodded as if saying thanks for the concern. He then started to walk away from Asia. Wait, Asia shouted. Issei turned to look at her with a raised brow. Since I'm new in town and I don't know my way, can you possibly show me the way towards the nearest church? There's someone I have to meet there, Asia asked shyly, with a small blush on her face. Issei had a small feeling that it was more than one person who she was going to meet, but he still decided to help her. He nodded his head and walked back to her, mentioning with his finger to follow him. Asia nodded and followed Issei. She looked up at him and stared at the two scars that were visible, the one on his neck and the one on his right eye. She wanted to ask him how he got them, but she knew he wouldn't answer her, since it's been a while since he last spoke. Suddenly, Issei heard a loud grumble. He turned towards Asia, who was holding her stomach with her hands, while her head was down in embarrassment, a huge blush on her cheeks. Issei could have sworn that he felt the side of his left lip inching up to a barely noticeable smile, which surprised him. He didn't even know that he had the ability to smile. But it lasted for only a millisecond, so he still has a way to go. He mentioned for Asia to follow him to a fast food court. Issei bought himself a cheeseburger. He bought another cheeseburger for Asia. They decided to sit outside. As Issei was eating his burger, he noticed Asia looking at her food. He tapped her shoulder so he could get her attention. Asia looked at Issei and Issei stared at her with a raised brow. This may sound like a stupid question, but how do you eat this? I've never actually seen this type of food, Asia said, looking to the left shyly. Issei then grabbed his cheeseburger and Asia looked at him. Issei then took a bite out of the burger and chewed slowly. He then looked at Asia. Is that how you eat it? Asia asked. Issei only nodded. Asia grabbed the burger with her hands and took a small bite. Her eyes widened as she looked at the burger with stars in her eyes. This is so delicious. I never ate something as delicious as this, Asia said as she took another bite of her burger. Just like before, Issei's lips went up to another barely noticeable smile. It lasted for only half a millisecond. After they ate their lunch, Issei then led her to the nearby church. Once outside, Asia turned to Issei with a smile on her face. Thank you for showing me the way to the church. I hope we meet again soon. May God be with you, Asia said as she entered the church. Issei was a little suspicious about what was in that church. He knew that there was more than one person that Asia was going to meet, but what were they? Were they fallen angels? Heh. It looks like you worry too much about little Asia. Why is that? You never cared for anyone but your own. Why start caring now? Issei shook his head. There was no way that an innocent girl like her would associate with monsters like the fallen angels. Maybe she really was just going to meet another priest. But for whatever reason, he decided to agree with the voice. Issei decided to push his worries away and decided to go back home. There was nothing else to do. Hello Issei. Didn't expect to see you here. Issei heard a voice from behind him. Issei looked over his shoulder and saw Riaz walking towards him. She wore the same attire that she wore yesterday. Issei raised his shopping bag, saying that he only came here to shop. I just came here to take a small walk for fresh air. Also, you could say that I was watching you a little, and I saw you walking with that nun, Riaz said nervously as she saw the look that Issei gave her once she said that she was watching him. I just want you to know that nuns are associated with most angels, and since angels are enemies to us devils, then I would suggest that you stay away from her. Riaz continued. Issei then extended his right arm forwards. Diedrag said. Then on which side are you? Riaz asked. Diedrag said. And I already said that I'll do what I can in order to prevent that, Riaz said seriously. Diedrag said. Issei then looked up at the sky. He saw that the sky was starting to get orange. He was quickly reminded that he should go bury Rainier in a few hours. Diedrag said. Issei started to walk away. Can I help you with that? Riaz asked hopefully. Issei looked at her a little strangely. After a small while, he sighed and nodded his head, mentioning to follow him. Riaz smiled and followed Issei. Issei was more than comfortable with the walking in silence. He actually preferred it. When they arrived at Issei's house, Issei took his key out and opened the door. The first thing that caught Ria's attention was of course the dead fallen angel that was near the entrance. The second thing that caught her attention and worried her a little was a bottle of medicine that was on the kitchen's dining table. Issei mentioned her to wait here, and he went upstairs, leaving Riaz alone for the moment. Ria's curiosity got the better of her as she approached the dining table. She grabbed the medicine tab and looked at the label. From what she could tell, the medicine was named Thorazine. She then heard steps coming down the stairs. Riaz quickly put the medicine to where she found it and went back to where she was before. When Issei came downstairs, he was holding a large bag and a shovel. Issei grabbed Rainier and stuffed her in the bag. He closed the bag and tossed it over his shoulder. Do you know where you want to bury her? Riaz asked. Diedrag said. I can easily cover you, Riaz said, confident. Diedrag said nothing. They both went to the backyard through a door in the living room. Issei began to dig down a small hole. Once he was sure that it was deep enough, he grabbed the bag with Rainier inside and tossed her inside the hole. Issei, can I ask you a question? Riaz asked, nervous. Issei stopped pouring dirt in the hole and looked at Riaz. Riaz was sweating a little. She didn't know how he would react when she tells him that she saw him medicine. She gave a nervous sigh to calm herself. What is Thorazine? I saw the medicine on your dining table, so I got curious, Riaz asked. Once she looked at Issei, she instantly regretted asking him. He was just staring at her, a very dead look in his eyes. He finished pouring dirt in the hole. Once giving the pile 2 pats with the shovel, Issei turned his attention back at Riaz, slowly approaching her. Once Issei gave 2 pats on the pile of dirt with his shovel, he slowly walked to Riaz with a dangerous look in his eyes. Riaz took a few steps backwards. Issei, please tell me, Riaz said with a ting of fear in her voice. Issei ignored her and extended his hand to the right, his boosted gear appearing. Diedrag said. Issei gave a sigh in disappointment that he couldn't kill her, but complied with Diedrag. For now, Diedrag said. What does he have that make him have to take those pills? Riaz asked a little hesitantly. Diedrag said. What? Riaz screamed in shock. Then what about his dementia? Riaz asked, recovering from her shock. Diedrag said. So he might not have dementia after all. Riaz asked. Diedrag said. Diedrag then went silent, waiting for Riaz's response. Well, dementia or no dementia, I promise that I'll stay by your side, Issei. Me and the others are going to help you through with your depression and with your revenge. But I regret to say that your battle with schizophrenia is yours. I can't do anything about that. Riaz finished regrettably. Issei stood there, a little surprised. He thought that she would run away from him, saying to never approach her again. But instead, she'll stay close by his side. Though he still shouldn't probably trust her. She might have said that, but she might end up stabbing him in the back. So Issei only nodded in thanks, but it was probably fake. Riaz smiled with a small blush on her face. She then spread her devilish wings and flew away. Issei sighed and went inside his house. He went to his fridge and opened it, grabbing an apple. He opened the television and sat down on the couch, taking a bite out of the apple. After a small while, his mind began to travel back to the nun that he helped today. Just being with her for about 2 hours, she managed to make him smile for the first time in 10 years. Even if it was for a millisecond, it was still a smile nonetheless. But then, his mind traveled to the church that he took her. Something seemed kind of off about that place. It was like something dark and evil were behind those doors of the church. Who knows, he might just be overreacting about the whole situation, but still, it's okay to ponder. Issei rubbed his one eye and closed the television. He stood up and filled a cup with water. He put the pill in his mouth and drank the water. Issei went upstairs and took a shower. He then went to his bedroom to get himself some sleep. The next day, Issei woke up, blinking a few times at the rays of sunlight hitting his face. Just like 2 days ago, no nightmare. He yawned quietly and got out of bed. He went downstairs and cooked some fried pork with ginger, rice, and miso soup. After finishing breakfast, he took his medicine and sat on his couch, wondering what to do today. He could either go for a walk around town to relax a little bit or try and find Asia. After questioning his choices, he decided to go look for Asia. He took his key with him and exited his house. His first target was of course where he first saw her, and that was the park. After arriving at the park, he saw her sitting on one of the benches, just looking around. He approached her silently. Issei tapped her shoulder once, making her jump in surprise. Once she saw who it was, she relaxed and smiled. "Ah, I've been looking for you. I wanted to see you again," Asia said shyly. Issei looked at her with a little bit of surprise behind his eye. He suppressed the urge to smile. "I wanted to go have lunch with you once more. Is that okay with you?" Asia asked with a smile and blush. Issei nodded and mentioned for her to follow him. "Could we eat at the same place where you first treated me? I enjoyed the food," Asia said with a happy smile. Issei only nodded. After arriving at the burger joint they went yesterday, they ordered their burgers. Asia ordered a cheeseburger like last time, while Issei bought a teriyaki burger. I know you haven't spoken in a while, but I was wondering if I could maybe heal your throat," Asia said, looking to the left. Issei looked at her. He thought about being able to talk again, but in the end, he shook his head, saying no. "Why not?" Asia asked. Issei only shrugged his shoulders. He didn't know why he refused to let her heal him, but he thought it was for the best. After finishing their lunch, Issei and Asia walked around the town for a bit. Since Asia was new in town, it was a good chance to show her a little bit of the city. After walking for about 10 minutes, Asia suddenly stopped and looked at what looked to be an arcade. Issei stopped walking once he noticed that Asia wasn't beside him. He turned back and saw her looking at the arcade. "I haven't seen an arcade before. I have heard of them, but haven't actually seen one. Can we go in?" Asia asked with hopeful eyes. Issei nodded and led her inside the arcade. Once inside, Asia's eyes light up at the sight. There were many types of racing games, classic games, and many more. "This is amazing," Asia said with excitement. Issei looked at her and then looked at the ground. He smiled for a second and then went back to his normal depressed look. After showing Asia around and playing a few games, it was time for them to leave. Asia then suddenly stopped and looked at the claw crane. Issei looked at her and saw her staring at a doll inside the machine. "Awa, that doll is so cute," Asia said with a smile. Issei walked up next to her and saw the doll that she was staring. He pulled out a coin and inserted it inside the machine. He grabbed the joystick and moved the crane on top of the doll Asia wanted. He pushed a green button and the crane slowly lowered on top of the doll. The crane grabbed the doll and moved it towards a hole in the lower right corner. The crane let the doll drop in the hole. Issei grabbed it from the small door at the bottom of the machine and gave it to Asia. "Thank you very much, Issei," Asia said with a happy smile on her face as she hugged her new doll. Issei nodded at her and started to walk towards the exit. Again, he noticed Asia not following him. He looked behind him and saw Asia still hugging her doll, smiling and looking at the floor. But her smile wasn't the smile of someone happy. She had a sad smile on her face. Issei approached her slowly. Once he was close, Asia looked up at him. "Hey, are we friends?" Asia asked, looking straight into his eyes. Issei looked at her weirdly for a second, wondering as to why she would ask such a question. But nonetheless, he nodded. Asia looked at him for a second, still smiling sadly. She then looked at her doll. "I'm sorry for asking such a question. When I was born, I didn't know who my mother or my father was. I was an orphan. After being given the sacred gear, Twilight Healing, I became the holy priestess." "Wait, you do know what a sacred gear is, right?" Asia asked, a little worried. Issei nodded. "How do I know that you are not lying?" Asia asked. Issei looked around and saw that nobody was around them. He extended his right hand forward and his boosted gear appeared. Asia gave a real smile this time, but it quickly went back to the sad one she was wearing earlier. "After becoming the holy priestess, I met a devil. I don't remember him name though. Anyway, I found him at the blink of death and I had no other choice but to heal him. After the nuns learned about me healing a devil, they banished me from the church. I have been traveling ever since," Asia finished sadly. Issei looked at her, signs of pity evident in his eyes. He then walked up to Asia and put his hands on her shoulders. This action caused Asia to look up at him with wide eyes. Issei then moved one of his hands to the back of her neck and pulled her close, hugging her. Asia was a little surprised by Issei's action, but she was happy at the same time. They stayed there hugging for a couple of minutes, Issei deciding to break apart. Asia was a little disappointed that the hug was finished, but she gave a happy smile nonetheless. "Thank you, Issei. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for being my first friend, Asia said, tears of happiness trickling down her face. Issei wiped her tears with his fingers and gave her another quick hug. He then grabbed her hand and they walked out of the arcade, holding hands. It might have not been the most exciting day, but it was a happy day, because Issei now had a new friend. Issei exited the arcade with Asia in hand. It might have not been the most exciting day, but it was a happy day, because Issei now had a new friend he could probably rely on. They were walking towards the church that Issei left her off last time. But he felt like something was off, just like last time. He felt something evil was inside that church. He wanted to tell himself that it was nothing, but he couldn't shake it off. Suddenly, a man wearing a pale violet trench coat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, and a black fedora came up to them. Issei could not see his eyes, since the fedora covered them, but he saw that he had black hair. "Asia, what are you doing? I thought we said that you were forbidden from leaving the church," the man said sternly. "I am sorry, Donasik. I wanted to meet him one last time before Asia began, but stopped." This caused Issei to look at Asia with a curious expression. She was hiding something from him, obviously. But what exactly was it? He decided that now was not the best time to ponder on it. He stood in front of Asia protectively. Do you think that you, a lowly human, can protect her from a fallen angel such as myself?" Donasik said as he extended his wings. Issei then remembered that other fallen angel, Rainier. She might be allied with this fallen. Of course, he wasn't going to tell him that he was the one that killed her. A voice was heard through Issei's right hand. This surprised Asia and Donasik. Issei extended his hand and revealed the boosted gear. The boosted gear, the Red Dragon Emperor, Donasik whispered in shock. D-Drag asked. Everything went quiet. It was like time froze all of a sudden until Donasik burst out laughing like a complete maniac. "Hey, why the hell should I answer to you? You think I'm scared of you or something?" Donasik asked. D-Drag said. "I don't have time for this shit. Asia, we're leaving now," Donasik shouted at the nun. Asia hesitantly nodded and started to walk away from Issei. She didn't walk far. Issei grabbed her hand. Once she turned around, she saw Issei shaking his head, saying, "Don't go." Asia gave a sad smile to Issei. "It's okay, you don't have to be sad. Everything will be okay," Asia said, but she and Issei knew that none of what she said was true. Issei didn't know what to do. He could let her go and never see her again, or he could fight for her. D-Drag said inside Issei's head. Issei hesitantly let go of Asia's hand. She gave him one last sad smile and then walked towards the fallen angel. Donasik gave a smirk of victory towards Issei, in which he glared at. Once Asia was close to Donasik, he pushed her forward. "Walk faster," Donasik demanded as he turned his back to Issei and walked away with Asia. Issei stared at their retreating form. They soon disappeared behind the doors of the church. Issei stared at the door in which Asia and Donasik entered. He boiled his hands into fists, a few bones cracking. He was not going to let anything bad happen to her. Tomorrow is going to be a hell of a day. Once Issei arrived home, he opened his door and went to his kitchen. He took his medicine and looked up at the clock on the wall. It was 7:57. Issei heard his stomach growl in hunger. He made himself a bowl of cereal for tonight. Once he finished, he put his bowl in the sink and made his way upstairs. He took a quick shower and went to bed. Inside Issei's dream, Issei's eyes snapped open. He looked around the area that he was in. From what he could tell by a cross that was in the center in the room and from the chandeliers that were on the ceiling, he was inside a church. He looked around a little more and noticed a few dead bodies. He walked up to one and saw that he had white hair. He was dressed in clerical clothing. He had a deep hole on the top of his head and his brain was inside his ears and his mouth. Probably something heavy hit him on the top of his head, which caused his brain to go inside his ears and mouth. The rest of the bodies were exorcists and two other fallen angels, which were both female, but he didn't recognize them. Issei then saw a door behind the cross. He went through the door and saw a pair of stairs going down. Once he reached the bottom, he saw the fallen angel that he met today, Donasik, lying in a puddle of his own. From what Issei could tell, one of his wings was torn off, his eyeball was almost missing from its socket and his throat was sliced open. Issei then looked in front of him and widened his eyes. He saw Asia, curled up in a corner, her knees on her chest. She was looking at him with teary eyes and a horrified expression. Issei stared to approach her. "Don't come closer, you monster. Please, spare me," Asia screamed at him in fear. Issei stopped dead in his tracks. He felt his heart break a little. He then remembered the bodies that were upstairs in the church and Donasik's dead body. Was he the one who did all of this? He tried to tell her that he didn't remember doing all of this. He wanted to tell her, but he couldn't. He was hurting. The last person that probably ever cared for him might have just left him for good. Asia looked at his hurt expression. She looked to her left, not wanting to look inside his eyes anymore. "Please just go. Never come here again. I don't want to see you anymore," Asia said in a hurt voice. That was it. He tried to tell himself that this was not real, that he'll soon wake up in his bed and go through a day in school like nothing ever happened. But yet his mind told him something else. This is reality. He remembered going to sleep. He remembered sleep embracing him. Yet this felt real. Too real for his liking. "Hey, I told you to not get too attached to someone. Now look at you, you're pathetic," the voice said inside Issei's head. Issei clutched his head, wishing for the voice to leave him alone. "But it isn't that simple. Why do you keep fighting me? Why do you continue to fight your true nature? Just embrace it. Embrace the fact that you are a monster. A voice said. Issei began thrashing left and right, breathing heavily. Oh, now I see the reason that you don't accept me. I know it. The voice said, chuckling. Issei fell to his knees. Is the reason that you don't accept me because you're afraid? The voice asked. Issei now saw nothing but darkness. End of dream. Issei gasped and fell of his bed. One of his hands went on his throat as he struggled to breathe. His face turned as red as a tomato from the lack of oxygen. Drake shouted at his host. After a few seconds, Issei could finally breathe normally. He breathed heavy breaths as he laid down on the floor. He then picked himself up and headed towards the bathroom. That was his second panic attack, 2 days in a row now. With each nightmare, he had a panic attack. He opened his bathroom door and looked at his reflection. Not much had changed. He was still a little red though. It was going to fade away as soon as he reached school. He exited his bathroom and dressed in his school uniform. He went downstairs and made himself some rice and orange juice. After finishing his breakfast, he took his medicine. Since he was going to have lunch at school, it might be a good idea to take the medicine with him. And so he did. He put the thorazine inside his school bag. He exited his house and locked the door with his key. He stuffed the key inside his pocket and made his way to Kyo Academy. Once arriving, he saw once again that the perverted duo were once again being chased by the kendo club. He ignored the commotion and made his way to his classroom. Once reaching the stairs, he was stopped by the Prince of Kyo himself, Kiba. Issei, Rias told us about the medicine that you take. I want to say that we'll try and help you through this. We are after all friends, right? Kiba asked, flashing Issei one of his smiles. Issei looked at him for a few seconds. He then nodded. Also, come to the clubroom at the end of school. There is something that Rias wants to tell us, Kiba said once more, before walking up the stairs, going to his own classroom. Issei soon followed. He entered his classroom and took his sit. He waited patiently for the bell to ring. Don't come any closer, you monster. Please spare me. He heard Asia's voice from the dream, repeating those 9 cruel words to him. He shook his head. He wanted to believe that the dream was just, well, a dream. But he couldn't shake off the feeling that maybe it's an event from the future. Dreams can sometimes show you moments of what you are going to do tomorrow. Issei sighed as he heard the bell finally ring. He looked to his right and saw Mrs. Keiko enter the classroom, books in her hands. Good morning, class. Today we are going to be learning about ancient Greek mythology, mostly on the gods of Olympus and some of the ancient creatures in Greek mythology. Mrs. Keiko explained today's lesson. Issei decided to pay at least a little bit of attention, since Greek mythology was an interesting subject, so to speak. At lunch, Issei decided to not have lunch today, since he wasn't hungry. He decided to go to the clubroom and wait until the bell rings. Once arriving, H opened the door to see everyone but Rias in the room. Hello, Issei. Would you like some tea? Aquino asked with a smile. Issei nodded. He needed something to drink if he was going to take his medicine. Once the tea was finished, Aquino placed it on the coffee table. Issei nodded at her in thanks. Before he could take out his medicine, he saw someone standing in front of him. Issei couldn't see his or her face. It was covered by cloth. The cloth was wrapped around every single strand of hair. Issei, I know the reason that you don't want to accept who you really are, but ever so slowly, you will embrace me. It only takes time. Just you wait, the person in front of him said. Just like that, Issei's breathing quickened. He didn't want to accept it. He doesn't want to embrace it. Issei, can you hear me? A female voice asked him. Issei snapped back to reality and saw that Aquino was staring at him with a worried expression. Kiba was also staring at Issei, worried. Kaneko, though, did not pay any attention at what was happening in the room and just continued to eat her sweets. Issei looked at Aquino questionably. Once I gave you the tea, your breathing quickened and you put your face in your palms, hyperventilating. Are you okay? Is something bothering you? Aquino asked. Issei gave a sigh and shook his head. Is it maybe the voice inside your head? Aquino asked hesitantly. Issei looked at her. He then remembered what Kiba said to him at the stairs this morning. He nodded his head. Issei, don't let it tell you what to do. This is your own body. You can do whatever you want with it. Aquino said, Kiba nodding in the back. Just then, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunchtime. Issei quickly pulled out his medicine and drank the tea, the pill coming after. Everyone watched him as he did so, feeling a slight wave of pity for the young man. They all exited the clubroom and went to their respective classrooms. After school, at the clubroom, everyone was now assembled in the clubroom. Rias looked at all of them with a smile on her face. Now that everyone is here, I would like to tell you why I told you all to come here. Rias began. She stopped to take a sip of her tea. I got a massage from the Archduke. The stray had been spotted nearby. He told us to eliminate him. Rias said, standing up. Let's go, everyone. Rias said, walking out of the clubroom. Yes, President. The rest said, except Issei. They reached the area where the stray was. In the outskirts of town, in an old warehouse. The smell of Kaneko said, covering her nose. Issei looked at her with a raised brow, then shrugged his shoulders and turned his attention back to the warehouse. Once entering, they saw that the warehouse had a lot of wooden boxes in it and a lot of dust. Issei heard Kaneko sniff as she breathed in some dust. Now that I have remembered, Issei, this would be a very good opportunity for you to see how devils fight. Have you ever heard of the game chess? Rias asked. Issei nodded. Then as you know, in chess every piece has its trait, Rias said. Issei looked confused at what she said. Rias noticed his confusion and decided to explain it to him a little more simply. Let me teach you some history. During the Great War, a lot of lives were lost from the three sides, mostly devils. We lost a lot of pureed clans. But one of our Maoists, Beelzebub, created the evil pieces based on the game. Rias explained. Issei nodded in understanding. Suddenly, the ground shook. Rias turned her attention towards the sound. Stray Devil Visor, we have come to eliminate you, Rias said seriously, though keeping a smile on her face. You, eliminate me. Don't make me laugh, little girl. I'll paint your face the same color as your hair, Visor said as she lounged forwards. Yudo, Rias shouted to the blonde boy. On it, President, Kiba said as he summoned his sword and jumped at the stray. Now, where was I? Oh yes, I remembered. Yudo is my knight. A knight specializes in speed mostly. Rias explained Yudo's trait as a knight. Visor tried to impale him with a spear thrust, but Kiba easily dodged it, using his speed as an advantage. Once he got close enough, he slashed both of her hands off. Visor looked at her hands and screamed in pain and anger. Pain mostly, and as you can see, he is an excellent swordsman, Rias said, looking at her knight with a proud smile. You'll pay for what you did, Visor screamed. Rias smiled. Now, second is Kaneko, who is a rook. She specializes in strength and she also had a very high defense. Once Rias finished her explanation on Kaneko's traits, Visor stomped on her. Issei stood though, as well as Rias, were not that worried. Once Issei heard that she had a very high defense, he was sure that she was okay. And okay she was. Visor was then lifted up by, you guessed it, Kaneko herself. Fly was the only word she said as she threw Visor at a nearby wall. Issei was slightly impressed. For such a little girl, she sure had a lot of power. And finally, there is my queen, Akino. Rias said. My president, is it my turn to have fun already? I'm going to enjoy this, Akino said with a sadistic smile. As my queen, Akino has all the traits of a rook, pawn, knight and bishop. Rias started to explain. When Akino raised her hand. After she did, lightning immediately struck Visor. The only thing that Visor could do now was scream, as her flesh slowly started to burn. Oh my, you're still alive. That's good, I can enjoy this even more, Akino said with a giggle. Akino continued to strike Visor with lightning, each bolt stronger than the other. Akino specializes in magic mostly. Another interesting fact about her is that she is the ultimate sadist, Rias said. Issei looked at Rias and then at Akino. How was her being a sadist an interesting fact? Don't worry, Issei, she may be like this when fighting, but she is actually very kind to her friends, Rias said with a smile. Fufu, it seems like you are still so full of energy. Can you still take a bit more? Just don't die. The president will have the honor of killing you, Akino said with a smile. More specifically, a creepy, sadistic smile. All right, Akino, that is enough, Rias said with a smile still on her face. Akino stopped her attacks and came back to Rias. She had a disappointed look on her face. Good job, everyone. I am proud of all of you, Rias said to her peerage, in which they all smiled. Suddenly, their eyes widened. Rias looked at them in confusion. She turned around and saw that Visor had one last spear thrust left in her, and she was aiming it for Rias. Visor came closer and closer at Rias with incredible speed. Rias could not move from her shock. Visor had taken such a beating and she is still able to stand. How was that possible? Before Visor could strike Rias, a firebolt came from behind Rias and her peerage. The flames engulfed Visor. She was rolling down on the floor, screaming as she tried to put the fire out. Once she did, she laid down on the floor, not moving, but still alive. Everyone looked to see where the firebolt came from. They saw Issei, arm extended and smoke coming from his hand. Issei, was that you who did that? Rias asked. Issei nodded. Thank you for saving me then, Rias said, grateful that he saved her. The rest also smiled at Issei, grateful that he saved their master. Rias was about to turn around when she heard a familiar voice. D-Drag asked. Rias smiled. It's fine by me, Rias said. D-Drag's voice then went quiet. Everyone was quite curious in what Issei would do. Issei took a few steps forwards. He was now a few feet away from Visor. He opened his mouth and closed his eyes. He concentrated a lot of his energy at the back of his throat. Smoke started to come out of Issei's mouth. Once he was sure, he released that energy. Flames came out of his mouth, engulfing Visor full. Her screams didn't last long. Once Issei stopped, there was nothing left of Visor except her ashes. Issei turned around and saw that they were all staring at him, mouths open. He then sighed, smoke coming out of his nose and mouth. He then turned around and started to walk away from the group. Issei, where are you going? Rias asked him before he could leave. Issei stopped, but did not turn around. He only boiled his hands into fists and walked outside. It was time to get his friend back from the fallen, and there wasn't going to be any mercy. Issei left the old warehouse and headed towards the church. It was time to save his friend, and mercy was not going to be an option. So, you finally begin to accept what you are perfect, this is going to be enjoyable, the voice said. Issei only shook his head. No matter how many times that voice told him to accept who he is, he'll always just keep ignoring it. but he also knew that it was something that he couldn't keep up. At some point, he's going to fall. Issei looked slightly up and saw that he had arrived at the church. He stopped walking and looked down at his hands. That dream from last night was still inside his head. Suddenly, an image flashed inside Issei's mind. He saw that he had white hands. He looked down and saw the man with white hair on the ground dead. He was the same as he was inside his dream. Clerical clothing, a deep hole at the top of his head, and his brain was inside his ears and mouth. Issei shook his head. A hand automatically went up to his face. He gritted his teeth and began to breathe heavily. After a few seconds, his hand left his face and his pacey breathing stopped, returning to a more calming one. It was time to get revenge. He looked behind him and gave a small sigh. Of course they would follow him. Oh well, it looks like he'll just have to pretend that they're not there. Dietrich asked out loud. Issei only nodded. He started to walk forwards. He stopped at the front door and put hand on his chin. How should he approach this? Silently or loud and stupid? He decided to play it silently, but he doesn't know how long he'll be able to keep it up. He gave 2 knocks on the door and waited. After a minute, the door opened, revealing a man with short black hair and brown eyes. He had a small beard on his face and he had a sleepy expression. What do you want?" the man asked. Issei took the opportunity to look inside the church a bit. It was a normal church and it was the same as any other church. Chandeliers on the ceiling, wooden chairs that went all the way to the cross that was in the middle of the church. He couldn't see anything else since it was too dark. "Look kid, if you want to pray to God, then you should wait until the morning." Sniff sniff, wait a second, why do you smell like Divi? The man was cut off when Issei suddenly grabbed his throat and pulled him towards him. He put his entire arm over his neck and his other hand went to his mouth. The man tried to scream, but his screams were cut out by Issei's hand over his mouth. After a small while, Issei heard a snap and the man went limp in his arms. Issei let his body fall to the ground. Issei then entered the church and closed the door behind him. He walked forwards, but stopped when he heard a loud voice. "Yahoo, Yahoo, hello shitty devil, have you come here to die by my hand? Please tell me you did," the man said, coming out of a room behind a painting. Issei looked at the man weirdly, but then realized who it was. It was the man with the white hair and the red eyes. I'll take your silence for a yes. But before I cut you down with my sword, I'll let my name haunt you. My name is Fried Salzin. Fried screamed as he dashed at Issei with his sword raised. Issei's eyes widened at the familiar words. "Remember my name. My name is Cockabeel." He heard Cockabeel's voice in his head. Issei gritted his teeth in anger. He looked up and saw Fried's body start to change. His hair changed from white to black. It was also longer. His eyes became redder. His clothing changed as well. Though Issei couldn't see most of it, he saw that he had a black robe. That's right. The man that was dashing towards Issei was none other than Cockabeel. "What's wrong, Red Dragon Emperor? Are you shocked to see me? Or are you afraid?" The second one sounds more reasonable, since I was the one that created every single scar that's on your face. Cockabeel shouted with a big grin on his face as he came closer to Issei. Issei clenched both his hands into fists and gritted his teeth hard, almost breaking them. Issei suddenly looked at Cockabeel with fire in his one eye. Once Cockabeel was close enough, Issei punched him with all of his strength, shattering his jaw. Cockabeel fell down, screaming and dropping his sword. He was rolling around, holding his now broken jaw. "UFCKING human. How dare you do this to me?" Cockabeel shouted at the top of his lungs. He has never experienced this much pain before. Issei approached him and started to stomp down on the back of his head. Each time Cockabeel tried to crawl away, Issei just pulled him back. After a few powerful stomps, a deep hole was now visible at the top of his head. Issei then turned him around so he was facing him. He mounted on top of him and started to punch his face. 1 punch, 2 punches, even more. Each punch was coming stronger than the other. Issei heard Dietrich's voice. He blinked and then looked down. Cockabeel's body was now replaced by Fried's. Fred was dead. Just like in his dream, there was a big hole at the top of his head. But Issei did a little bit more damage. He saw that from all the punches, Fried's face was unrecognizable. His left eye was missing from its socket and a few parts of his face revealed his skull. Was he having a hallucination? He could have sworn that he was fighting Cockabeel. Issei sighed. He stood up and looked around again. He noticed that behind the painting that Fried came from was a staircase. He saw it as he walked closer. He then heard movement coming from the stairs. Issei narrowed his eyes. From his dreams, he remembered that there were a few bodies from exorcists. He took a few steps back and waited. It didn't take long for them to show up. Issei looked at them and counted that there were about 20 or so. One of them dashed forwards at Issei, screaming. Issei saw him and caught his sword with his bare hand, shocking him. Issei managed to tear the sword away from the exorcist. Issei then used that sword to stab him in the stomach. The exorcist fell down on the ground alive, but not for long. Another 2 charged at Issei. One of them tried to slash Issei across the face, but Issei easily dodged. He then grabbed the arm of the exorcist that tried to attack him. He blocked an incoming sword from another exorcist. He kicked the one that he blocked in the stomach, sending him a few feet away. He then stabbed the one that he was holding in his chest. He quickly ducked another exorcist's sword. He quickly sidestepped to the side and grabbed the top of his head. He turned his head to the right with force, breaking his neck. Suddenly, Issei was grabbed from behind by another exorcist. Another one stood in front of him, ready to strike with his sword. Issei elbowed the exorcist in the liver, making him let go of him. Issei quickly sidestepped away from the exorcist that was holding him, since the other exorcist was about to swing his sword. And he did, on his ally's shoulder. Issei blocked the punches of an exorcist, but then Issei sent a powerful one of his own. Despite the exorcist's attempt to block the punch, it broke his arms. Issei then stomped on his face. Another one dashed at him. Issei easily dodged the attack. He then grabbed the hand that the exorcist was holding the sword. Issei used his power and stabbed the exorcist with his own hand and sword, killing him. Issei was starting to grow impatient, since he didn't have much time, so he decided to end this fight quickly. He extended his hand forwards. Flames came out of his hands, burning a few exorcists. Issei stopped firing his flames and looked at the exorcists that were left alive. They were staring at him with fear in their eyes. Issei started to approach them slowly. They all came back from their frightening thoughts and ran away from Issei. "Stay away from us, you monster," one of them screamed. Unknown by the retreating exorcists, Issei flinched at being called a monster. Naturally, he wouldn't care. But since that dream he saw last night, the word monster became some kind of a cursed word for him. Issei then started to walk towards the door painting. He stopped, however, when he saw the cross in the middle of the room. He looked at it with hatred. He remembered what Asia told him. She didn't have any friends just because she was the Holy Maiden, and just because she healed an injured devil, God exiled her. So he did what he thought was right. He walked towards the cross and placed his hands on it. Smoke started to come out from the wooden cross. When Issei backed up from the cross, Issei now looked at the cross, which was slowly beginning to light up in flames. He shook his head and walked towards the painting. He opened the hidden door and walked down the stairs. When he reached the bottom, he saw a wooden door with a small window. Issei kicked the door open, easily breaking its hinges. Issei looked around the room that he was in. It looked like he was in a section in the catacombs of Paris, except that there weren't any skulls around. He looked in front of him and saw that there were 3 fallen angels, looking at him. 2 of them were women and one of them is Donasik. He then looked up at the wall where his eyes widened. He saw Asia, chained on the wall. But there was something different about her. Her whole body was limp. Her eyes were open, but they had no life in it. Issei then realized something. He was too late. He felt like a part of him died as he saw Asia chained to the wall, lifeless. He took a small step forwards. "You're too late, kid. We have already extracted her sacred gear. She's already dead," Donasik said with a smirk. The 2 female fallen angels approached Issei with grins. "What do you say, Calla Warner? Shall we get rid of this human scum?" the short girl said. Issei took a small glance at her. He saw that she was wearing a Gothic Lolita attire, which consisted of a black Lolita dress with white frills, a large black bow on the front, and a green jewel embedded on the collar, white thigh-high socks, and black shoes. She also wore a large black bow on top of her hair. She also had blue eyes and twin tails. Issei then took another small glance to the other girl. Her attire consisted of a violet, trench coat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trench coat top was open at her chest, giving view to her ass and cleavage. She also wore a gold necklace around her neck. She also had long, navy blue hair that obscured her right eye and brown eyes. "Yes, let's middle. Master Cockabiel will be pleased," Calla Warner said with a smirk, summoning her yellow light spear. Issei lost her at Cockabiel will be pleased. So, Cockabiel sent him. He'll remember to keep one alive then. Or 2. Middle then summoned her pink spear. She threw it at Issei. What made her smirk widen was that Issei didn't make an effort to move. Once the light spear touched Issei, it shattered and disappeared. Middle's eyes widened, though Calla Warner and Donasik grinned at her. "See, Middle, you're the weakest link. In terms of power, I am the strongest," Calla Warner said proudly, causing Middle and Donasik to glare at her. "What makes you think that you're the strongest one?" Donasik said with narrowed eyes. "Simple. In every sparring match that we had, I beat you both. The only one that came close to beating me was Rainier. Speaking of her, what happened to her? The last time I saw her was when she was about to take out the human that was supposed to be the host of the Red Dragon Emperor," Calla Warner said. A voice said. This caused the Middle and Calla Warner to look around the room. Donasik looked at the arm of Issei in curiosity. "What are you talking about, Red Dragon Emperor?" Donasik asked, shocking the other 2 fallen. "Wait, this kid is the host of the Red Dragon Emperor. And you knew all along," Calla Warner shouted. "Shut up. What did you mean by that, Red Dragon Emperor?" Donasik asked once more. Diedrag said, You son of a bitch," Calla Warner screamed as she dashed at Issei. Issei sighed. This was going to be way too easy. He karate chopped Calla Warner on her neck. She fell on the stone floor, unconscious. 1 down, 2 left. Middle widened her eyes and took a few steps back. She felt someone behind her. She turned around and saw Donasik, looking at her with a smirk. He pushed her at Issei with all his power. Her body collided with Issei's. She looked up and saw him staring at her with a scary look in his eye. Before she could react, Issei kneed her in her solar plexus, cutting her air supply. In a few seconds, she too fell unconscious. Well, this is what you get for trusting women to do a man's job. I'll take it from here. And believe me, I won't be as easy as those 2, Donasik said with a grin on his face. Donasik took his fighting stance and summoned a blue light spear in his right arm. Issei, seeing this, disappeared. Donasik's eyes widened as he looked around the room for any sign of Issei. Donosik then felt a hand on his shoulder. He was spun forcefully around and saw Issei. Issei already summoned his boosted gear in his right hand, and it was with the same hand that he punched Donosik. Donosik fell to the ground, holding his right cheek where Issei punched him. Issei picked him up from the ground and threw him towards the wall Asia was chained to. Once Donosik fell to the ground, he looked up and saw Issei approaching him slowly. He tried to stand up, but Issei grabbed him by the throat. Issei head-butted him, breaking his skull. Issei grabbed his throat once more and threw him at the other side of the room. Donosik's body stopped rolling at the front of the now broken door that Issei kicked open. He desperately began trying to crawl away, trying to escape Issei's fury. He felt two hands grab both of his legs, pulling him away from the exit. Issei turned him around and shoved both of his thumbs into Donosik's eyes. Donosik screamed as Issei shoved his thumbs deeper and deeper into his skull. Issei then pushed his thumbs deeper. Donosik's body went limp. Issei pulled his thumbs back and looked at them. He saw that both of Donosik's eyeballs were on his thumbs. Issei pulled them off his thumbs and threw them on the ground. Issei looked back and saw Asia's body. It was still the same, lifeless. Issei then looked at Donosik's body and saw a green glow coming from one of his fingers. Once he got closer, it looked like a ring with a green jewel on top. He pulled the ring off Donosik's finger and looked at it closely. Diedrag apologized to his host, but Issei stopped listening when Diedrag said that it was her sacred gear. He tore the chains that chained Asia on the wall. He slung her over his shoulder and started to walk to the set of stairs. Diedrag asked. Issei stopped walking and looked back at the two unconscious fallen. He lightly let Asia on the floor and walked over to the two fallen. He slugged both of them over his shoulders while he carried Asia bridal style. He walked up the steps and saw the orc waiting. They didn't seem to notice him. Issei looked at the cross that he burnt, which was now just a piece of burnt wood. Issei. He heard the voice of Rias. He looked at her and saw her running at him. Issei, are you all right? They didn't hurt you, did they? Rias asked. Issei shook his head. He then pushed Asia's dead body towards her. Rias grabbed the dead nun and looked at Issei with confusion. Issei then gave her twilight healing, causing Rias to widen her eyes. Issei then walked past her carrying the two fallen still. He went past Akino, Kaneko and Kiba. Issei, wait! Rias shouted as she turned around. But by that time, Issei was already gone. With Issei unlocked his door and entered his house. He opened the lights. Issei dropped the bodies of the two fallen on his couch. Diedrag pleaded his host, but Issei ignored him. He opened his fridge and grabbed a big bottle of beer. Issei took the lid off and began to drink from the bottle. Ha, that's right, continue to go deeper and deeper into your depression. You will go even deeper, and as time goes by, they will realize that you are too far gone. The voice said. Issei, though, ignored it as well, because he finally understood what those lyrics meant. When real life is hard on you, the only happiness that you have left is inside a bottle. Happiness, straight from the bottle. When real life's too hard to swallow. Calla Warner's eyes fluttered open. Her vision was a little hazy, but once she looked around the room that she was in, her vision cleared. She was lying down on a couch. She looked to her left and saw Middle as well, but she was still asleep. Middle, wake up, she whispered to her comrade, but Middle wasn't waking up. Calla Warner looked behind her and her eyes widened slightly. In the kitchen, she saw Issei. Though he was asleep, she could see that there were around 15 bottles of alcohol on the table. His face was on the table, so she couldn't see it. She looked back at Middle. She gave a tired sigh. She slapped her in the face, successfully waking her up. Oh, Calla Warner, what the hell was that faux MPH? Middle began shouting, but she was cut off when Calla Warner placed her left hand on her mouth, shutting her up. SHH. Middle, shut up. Look over there, Calla Warner said, pointing at Issei. Once Middle looked at the direction she was pointing, her eyes widened a bit. It's that darn kid that knocked both of us out. Middle whispered. Yes, I remember. But what happened to Donosik? Calla Warner asked with a raised brow. Who cares about him? Right now, we should figure a way to get out of here, Middle said. Calla Warner nodded in agreement. She looked around the room once more. She noticed that the door wasn't that far from where they were. Middle, we're gonna try and walk over to that door. Make sure that you don't make a single sound, Calla Warner said. Okay, but shouldn't we kill him first? I mean, he's asleep. It will be an easy kill for us, Middle said with a smirk on her face. Calla Warner looked at Issei for a moment. She then looked away and turned her attention at the door. He's not worth it. Come on, let's get out of here, Calla Warner said. But why not? Middle asked with a raised brow. Calla Warner did not answer immediately, since the reason was also unknown for her. Let's just get out of here, she said again. Middle sighed, dropping the subject for now. A light fine, but don't expect me to forget about it. But what are we going to do if the door is locked? Middle asked. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Now come on, Calla Warner said, standing up from the couch. Middle followed. They slowly began to make their way towards the door. Once they reached the door, Calla Warner slowly reached out to grab the knob of the door. She slowly turned it. Shit, it's locked, Calla Warner said with a frown. Here, let me try something, Middle said, pulling out a small nail. Where did you get that? And when did you learn how to pick lock doors? Calla Warner asked with a raised brow. Plot convenience, Middle said casually. What? Calla Warner asked. Oh, nothing, Middle said quickly. Calla Warner looked at Middle weirdly. She then shrugged her shoulders and waited for her to unlock the door. Suddenly, they heard someone clear their throat. They both paled. Slowly and shakily, they both turned around. Issei was now awake. He was staring at them with a sleepy expression. He had dark circles under his eyes, meaning that he was drinking until almost morning. He was also a little pale. His left eye was kinda red, which meant that he was crying at some point. He was also holding a bottle that was filled with beer in his right hand. Issei looked at the two fallen with an emotionless face. He rubbed his eyes and looked at them with a face that said, "Where do you think you two are going?" "Gee, good morning, kid. Did you sleep well?" Calawarner said in a shaky voice. Issei looked at her, but didn't nod nor shake his head. He slowly began to approach the two fallen, which were now backed against the door. Once Issei got close enough, he grabbed the pick from Middle's hand and snapped it in two. He threw it on the ground and continued to stare at the two fallen. Finally, Issei gave a tired sigh and slowly walked away from the two fallen. They both gave a sigh of relief, knowing that he wouldn't do anything right now. Issei went to the couch that the two fallen were sleeping and sat down. He looked down at the bottle in his hand. He put the bottle to his lips and took a big swig. After a few seconds, the beer bottle was now empty. He looked at the bottle for a moment. He let it slip out of his hands, falling to the floor, but not breaking. The two fallen stared at Issei. They didn't know what to do. What do you want us here? Also, why did you keep us alive? What happened to Donosik?" Middle asked. Issei broke out of his small drunken state and looked at the two fallen. Diedrag said, surprising the two fallen with his sudden appearance. Once they sank in what Diedrag said, they both looked at each other. "What if we refuse to tell you anything?" Calawarner asked with gritted teeth. Diedrag said with a chuckle. Both Calawarner and Middle flinched at the mention of death. Diedrag said. Both the fallen could just feel the grin behind his voice. Once Diedrag's voice went quiet, Issei stood up. At that point, Middle and Calawarner already had their light spears in hand. But there weren't any smirks on their faces. As Issei took a step forward, they took a step back. Diedrag said. Both the girls looked at each other and thought of their options. They both retracted their light spears and looked at the floor. Can you give us some time to think about it? Calawarner asked. Diedrag asked. The question caused Calawarner and Middle to widen their eyes. He thinks of us as allies, Calawarner said. Diedrag said coldly. By this point, Middle was now looking down, tears going down her cheeks. Calawarner had the same expression, but she wasn't crying. Diedrag said. Middle nodded and wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her shirt. Calawarner looked up. Well, we'll tell you everything that we know, though it's not much, Calawarner said. Issei nodded and waited for her to continue. From what we heard, Cockabeel is going to come to this town. We don't know the exact day, but we know that it's going to be soon. Another thing that he's hoping to do whilst in this town is to start another great war between the three factions. That is all we know, Calawarner said. Issei narrowed his eyes at Cockabeel's plans. Diedrag has mentioned the great war between the three factions, but he didn't know much. Diedrag said. Issei widened his eyes. So now that we told you everything that we know, what is going to happen to us? Middle asked. Diedrag said. That was where we were planning to go. Middle said. Diedrag said. That two fallen looked at Issei with raised brows. Diedrag proposed his offer to the two fallen. The two fallen looked at Issei in surprise. Middle looked to be thinking. Just promise us one thing, Calawarner said. Issei looked at her, prompting her to continue. You won't throw us aside. Also, could I make an offer? Calawarner asked. Middle looked at her friend in confusion. Issei raised his brow at her, but nonetheless, he nodded. Since I don't want to go that dirty old church, I was wondering if we could both live here from now on, Calawarner said, a bit of red on her cheeks. Middle looked shocked at what Calawarner proposed. She also went a little red. Issei looked at her, surprised. He put a hand on his chin, thinking if he should accept or not. Diedrag said inside his head. Issei was expecting Diedrag to reject the offer, but he was now even more surprised that he was willing to let two fallen angels live with them. Don't listen to that dragon, he's making you weak, he's making you soft, the same goes with the devils, the voice said. Issei gritted his teeth at the voice. He snapped back in reality once he heard Middle snapping her fingers in front of him. Yo, you still with us? She asked. Issei sent her a glare, which made her back off. Issei then looked at Calawarner and sighed. He then nodded his head. You're allowing us to stay? She asked. Issei nodded again. Thank you so much, Calawarner said with a smile. Issei just waved her off, meaning that it was nothing. Diedrag said to his partner. Issei looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was 12:36 o'clock. He was basically 2 hours late. Issei yawned and lazily went to get his bag. He was already in his school uniform from yesterday. Though it was a little dirty, he decided to wear it just for today. Diedrag said. The two fallen nodded and made their way to the couch. They sat down and opened the TV. Issei grabbed his spare key and exited his house. He locked the door and started walking slowly to school. By the time that he got there, it was lunch time. He went through the gate and started to walk towards the old school building. Why were you late? A female voice said. Issei looked in front of his and saw two girls walking towards him. The one on the right has a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes that were behind glasses. She was wearing the Kyo Academy girl uniform. The one on her left has long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees with split bangs and light brown eyes that were behind a pair of glasses as well. She was also wearing her school uniform. Once the girl on the right took a good look of Issei, she said, Oh, you're the new member of the Occult Research Club. Rias told me a lot about you. My name is Sona Citri and this here is Tsubaki Shinra. Pleased to meet you in person, Sona said with a polite bow, Tsubaki doing the same. Issei gave a small bow as well. But just because you're in the same club as my friend doesn't mean that I'm letting you off the hook that easily. Though she did tell me that you don't speak. Well, I suppose since this was your first time running late, I'll forgive you. Just don't make a habit out of it, Sona said sternly. Tsubaki then sniffed the air and her eyes widened at the smell. Sona, this guy reeks of alcohol, Tsubaki shouted. Sona's eyes widened. She walked closer to Issei and smelled the air. Her eyes widened as well. H, have you been drinking before coming to school? That is unacceptable. You're coming with me, Sona shouted, grabbing Issei's collar and dragging him with her. They reached a door. On the door it had a small frame that said Student Council. Sona opened the door and dragged Issei inside. Sit down on one of these chairs and wait until I decide what kind of punishment I can think of, Sona said with an irritated sigh. Issei sat down on one of the chairs and waited. He probably should have washed the smell of alcohol before coming to school, but he didn't expect to run to the student council president. And let's just say that Issei put 2 and 2 together. I mean, if he ran into a random student, I doubt that they'll care enough to tell the student council, let alone anyone else. Issei then heard another sigh from Sona. He looked at her, wondering as to why she was sighing. Well, it might not be the worst punishment, but you'll have to stay after school. For now, go to the old school building. Rias is waiting for you, Sona said, sitting down on the huge desk and began to sign a few papers. Issei stood up and exited the student council. Once he got to the front door of the old school building, he narrowed his eyes, feeling 2 unfamiliar presences in the room. Diedrag said. Issei nodded and entered the old building. He went up the stairs and took a right. He reached the door to the clubroom. He heard 2 voices. One was a male's that he hadn't heard of before and one of them was Rias. For the last time, Riser, I won't marry you. He heard Rias shout. This caused Issei to raise his brow. Rias was engaged, but from the sound of her voice, she was forced into the marriage. There it is again, the same refusing answer. You really are a stubborn one, Rias. The situation of your household is very serious. The man, which Issei guessed was Riser, said. And I keep telling you that as the heiress of the Gremory family, I'll be the one to choose a husband. Both our families are rushing things, and you already know that I can't marry until I finish college in the human world. Rias said, angrily. You are right about that. But the reason that we're rushing is because your mother and father are extremely worried. Worried that the household will go extinct if you don't marry soon enough. Your brother cannot help, since he left and became a Mao. The Great War took its toll on us devils. We lost almost all of the pureed devils, Riser said. Issei then felt a crack on the door. He looked to his left and saw that an ice spike impaled the wooden door. Grafia, what was that for? Rias shouted. I apologize, Rias, but I believe that someone is behind that door, a woman's voice said. From what he heard, her name was Grafia. Issei gave a quiet sigh. Since his cover was blown, he decided to show himself. He opened the door and entered the room. He saw a man sitting on one of the sofas in the room. The man was Riser. Even though he was sitting down, Issei could tell he was tall. He was wearing a burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right with matching pants and black dress shoes. Underneath his open blazer is a white dress shirt that is not fully buttoned, giving a slight view to his chest. He also had short blonde hair with dark blue eyes. Issei then looked at a woman that was behind the sofa Rias and Riser were sitting in. She was wearing a blue and white maid outfit with long sleeves and a white maid headband over her head with red lipstick. She also has silver hair and matching eyes. Her hair, which flows all the way down to her back, features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. Rias, who is this? Riser asked. This is Issei Hayaru, the current host of the Boosted Gear. Issei, this is Riser Phoenix, the heir of the Phoenix family, Rias said, though she said Riser's name like it was a curse word. I am the maid, Grafia Lucifuge. Pleased to meet you, Hayaru Issei. I also apologize for my attack earlier, Grafia said in a monotone voice, giving a small bow of apology to Issei. Issei then nodded and went to sit down. He then noticed a pair of green eyes staring at him wide-eyed. A pair of green eyes that he remembered. Issei, the girl said with a smile. Issei couldn't believe it. The girl that was sitting on the sofa was none other than Asia. Issei stared at her, wide eyes. He was wondering if this was real or just an illusion. Diedrag said in Issei's head. Issei extended his hand and patted Asia on her head. Asia's smile widened as she closed her eyes in happiness on Issei's touch. Then Issei did something that none of them in the orc saw before. He allowed a smile to cross his face. Rias had a small blush on her face, since this was the first time in seeing Issei smile. It was kind of relieving for her. Akino also had a blush on her face, but she also had a smile on her face. Kiba was surprised by Issei's smile, but he also smiled. Kaneko also let herself smile a little. Once Issei retracted his hand from Asia's head, he sat down and glared at Riser. Riser, though, ignored him. As I was saying, since lost most of us devils during the war, we need to replenish our numbers. Sure, some of the resurrected devils are quite powerful, but we simply cannot allow the future of the pureed devils go extinct. Riser then stopped talking so that he could take a sip from his cup of tea. You can either let your house get demolished when it has continued to run for so long, or you could make an effort and save it. This marriage is the future of all devils. Riser continued, I would never let my house get demolished and I am willing to take a husband. Rias said, perfect, then let's go get married, Riser said happily, but was cut off by Rias. But you are not going to be my husband. I want to have a husband that I both respect and love. Even devils from pure ed families have rights to choose, Rias said. Riser then narrowed his eyes. He stood up slowly from his chair and clicked his tongue. As you know, Rias, I also carry the Phoenix clan on my back, since I'm the heir. I also don't like it when I'm forced to travel to the human world. The air and fire is a mockery to me, who can rule over the air and fire. Riser shouted. Suddenly, flames erupted from the ground, covering Riser. I will make you my wife, even if I have to burn each and every single person in this room. Riser shouted. Rafia narrowed her eyes. Before she could interrupt what was happening, she saw Issei disappearing. She then saw Riser fall out of his flames and onto the floor, a red mark visible on his right cheek. Once the fire cleared, everyone saw that Issei was the one that punched Riser. Riser gritted his teeth in anger. You, how dare you touch me, let alone punch me? Riser shouted in rage. He stood up and tried to punch Issei, covering his left arm with flames. Issei ducked the punch and sidestepped to the left of Riser. Issei then kneed Riser to his stomach. This caused Riser to spit out. Issei backed away from Riser. Riser fell on one knee as he coughed in pain. He looked at Issei with anger and hatred in his eyes. Both of you, enough with this. Rias, your brother suspected that things will go like this, so he offered this option. Rafia said. And what did he offer? Rias asked. A rating game between you and Riser. Rafia said. This caused Rias and her peerage to widen their eyes. Rias then narrowed her eyes. I accept. I want a way out of this marriage. Rias said. Then Riser, do you accept the rating game between you and Rias? Rafia asked, turning to look at Riser. Riser gave a cocky smile. Sure, I accept. This should be fun. Riser said. But just as he said it, he looked around the room. Rias, is this your entire peerage? Riser asked. And what if it is? Rias asked with gritted teeth. Riser looked at her and then at her peerage. He began to chuckle. That chuckle soon became a full-blown-out laugh. Hey ha ha ha. This rating game is going to be a laugh. Your peerage doesn't stand a chance against my cute peerage. Riser said. Just as he said that, he snapped his fingers. His family's magic circle appeared a few feet back. Out of the circle came girls. Issei counted about 15. What do you think, Rias? Do you like my cute peerage? Ibaluna, come over here. Riser shouted to one of the girls. Yes, Riser. A woman came out of the crowd of girls. Her attire is a dress consisting of a navy blue tunic top with gold accents and a pale blue skirt with open sides, and black shoes over matching thigh-high stockings with garter belts. The top reveals much of her cleavage, and is held with a gold choker with blue and red jewels. Over this, she wears a white overcoat with black and gold accents and matching pauldrons. For accessories, she wears a black headband with a red-orange jewel over her forehead to keep her long hair in place, and wields a staff-like scepter in battle. For cosmetics, she wears purple lipstick, matching her eyes and hair. She also has wavy purple hair that falls all the way down her back and matching eyes. At the front, the right side of her hair falls over her and covers her right eye, while the left side falls near the top of her skirt. Riser grabbed her chin roughly and pulled her towards him. He then started to kiss her, forcing his tongue down her throat. Ibaluna was surprised with her master's sudden kiss, but she soon melted into the kiss. Riser then grabbed one of her s and started to play with it. This caused Ibaluna to moan. Once Riser stopped kissing his queen, he looked at Rias with a smirk. What do you think, Rias? Do you think that your peerage has what it takes to defeat me? Riser asked. Rias didn't answer, but she was staring at Riser, disgust evident in her eyes. Because this is going to be Rias' first rating game, you will have 10 days to train. Is this acceptable to you, Riser? Rafia asked. It is fine by me. But, since I want to make things a little bit easier on Rias, I'll let the host of the Red Dragon Emperor fight with her. Riser said, pointing at Issei. Riser, are you doubting my abilities? Rias shouted. Of course not. But, you yourself know that you'll need the help. Am I not right? Riser asked. Rias looked away, basically agreeing with Riser. But, he'll fight with you, in one condition. Riser smirked. Issei raised his brow, telling him to continue. He will have to battle with 2 members of my peerage. Mira, Cirrus, attack him. Riser shouted, pointing a finger at Issei. 2 women that jumped from the crowd of Riser's peerage and dashed towards Issei. One of them wore a white haori with a red obi, which is worn under a red happy coat. She wears bandages on her forearms and shins, and wears black guards over her hands. For footwear, she wears a pair of zori. She also has blue hair and light brown eyes. Her hair is styled with 4 short ponytails, with 2 of the 4 pointed up and the remaining 2 pointed down. The front of her hair features split bangs going across her forehead, with side bangs framing her face. The other woman wore a white top with black accents that is modeled after a Chinese cheongsam, red shorts, and armored, knee-high boots with matching gauntlets. The top features a diamond shape on the chest area, giving view of her ass and cleavage. She also has long black hair with a dark blue tint and brown eyes. Her hair features 5 thin ponytails going around her head, which are held up by a golden hair accessory on top of her head. Mira grabbed her wooden staff and tried to attack Issei. Before she could hit Issei, Issei parried the stick with his hand. The way he parried her caused her to lose her balance. Before she could fall, Issei punched her in the stomach. She kneeled down, holding her stomach with gritted teeth. Though the powerful punch made it difficult for her to breathe, she fell face first to the floor, unconscious. Cirrus gritted her teeth once she saw her ally fall easily. Yet again, she shouldn't be surprised since Mira is the weakest member on Riser's peerage. Cirrus grabbed her sword and dashed at Issei. She began to attack Issei with her sword, but Issei was dodging each slash with ease. Just as she was about to slash downwards, Issei grabbed her arm. He then breathed in and exhaled smoke from his mouth, but the smoke caused her to close her eyes. Issei then threw her arm aside and punched her squire in the jaw. She tried to stand up, but Issei stomped on her head, causing her to fall unconscious. Issei then looked at Riser, whose expression hasn't changed, though he was no longer smirking. Don't let this small victory go inside your head, kid. But you get to participate in the rating game. You should be careful though, because if you get eliminated, then Rias loses all hope of winning. Goodbye, Rias, Riser said. His family's circle appeared from beneath him. Riser and his peerage all disappeared. I believe that it's time for me to leave as well. I'll see you in the underworld before the rating game. A red circle appeared beneath Graphia's with the BGMI family sign on it. Graphia then disappeared. After the events that happened in the clubhouse, or the old school building, Issei and Ria's peerage agreed that in order to stand a chance against Riser and his peerage, they're going to have to get stronger. So they agreed that they will train. Ria said that there was a mansion that belonged to the BGMI family in the mountains. She said that is where they were going to train. And so here they are, walking up a mountain so they could get to the mansion. Issei was walking with a large hiker's bag on his back. Though it consisted of many items, Issei was able to carry it without breaking a sweat. Though he couldn't say the same about Rias in Asia. Issei, could you wait for us? Rias said, panting with her hands on her knees. Issei sighed and stopped walking. He turned around and pointed his finger at Kaneko. Rias turned around and looked at Kaneko. She immediately understood why he pointed at her. Kaneko was carrying twice the luggage of Issei with little to no difficulty. She passed Rias and made her way up the mountain. Rias sighed. My President, it looks like you really have trouble keeping up. Aquino said with a smile as she passed Rias. She was carrying a slightly small bag than Issei. Sorry, President. Kiba also said with his usual charming smile as he also passed Rias. He was carrying a bag that was the same size as Issei's. Rias then looked at Asia. She had the smallest bag out of all of them. She looked at Issei with a pout and continued to walk up the mountain. Once reaching the top, Issei looked at his surroundings. There was a wooden mansion in front of him and surrounding it was loads of trees. The weather was clear with white clouds in the sky. There was slight wind, but it wasn't strong. As I said in the clubroom, my family owns this mansion. This is where we are going to train for 10 days, Rias said with a smile. Issei waited for Rias to unlock the door to the mansion. Once she did, they entered the house. Everyone then set their hiking bags in the kitchen. Rias and the rest of the girls went to the second floor to get changed, while Kiba and Issei changed downstairs. Before Kiba could take off his shirt, he got an idea. He turned to look at Issei, only for him to widen his eyes. Issei's back shoulders were covered in red dragon scales with a few black dragon spikes. Issei, how did you become like this? Kiba asked. Issei looked at his back and then knew what he was talking about. Deedrag said. Kiba could only nod. He and Issei put on their school gym shirts and shorts and walked outside. The girls were already there and ready, wearing their school gym clothes. Alright everyone, here is what is going to happen. Me and Aquino are going to go into the deeper parts of the forest and do a magic spar, so we can see whose magic power is stronger and whose needs work on a certain category. Kaneko and Kiba, you two are going to spar against Issei. You two figure out who is going first. Asia, me and Aquino are going to get to you later, so just stay here and heal any injuries, if there are any. Rias said. Everyone nodded. Seeing that everyone understood what they were going to do, Rias and Aquino went into the forest. Asia went and sat down under a tree and waited for the spar between Issei and Kiba, Kaneko. So Kaneko, I think it's only fair if I fight Issei first, don't you think? Kiba asked with a charming smile. Kaneko nodded and went over to where Asia was sitting. She sat down next to her and waited for Kiba and Issei to begin their spar. Issei, don't you think that you should use a sword as well? Kiba said as he grabbed a wooden sword from the wall. Issei nodded and went to grab a sword as well. Despite never training with a sword, he had an idea on how to use one, which was enough for him. He took a stance and waited for Kiba to do the first move. Kiba dashed forward with his incredible speed and went to strike Issei. Issei easily parried Kiba and went to strike him back. Kiba also blocked Issei's attack, but it caused him to stumble a little because of the power Issei put behind his strike. Issei noticed him stumble. He repeatedly began to strike Kiba, who was blocking his attacks with difficulty. Issei delivered a low kick to Kiba's legs, causing him to fall to the floor. Issei then stood over him and raised the wooden sword in the air. Kiba parried the incoming sword with his own and managed to kick Issei off of him. Kiba quickly stood up and jumped away from Issei. I have to say, Issei, your skill with a sword is pretty good. But I think that it's time I get serious as well, Kiba said with his charming smile. Kiba took his stance and dashed towards Issei. Issei raised his sword to block an incoming attack from Kiba, but Kiba disappeared. But Issei knew better than that. Kiba appeared behind him and went to strike Issei at the back of Issei's head. Issei also disappeared and reappeared behind Kiba. When Kiba saw Issei disappear, Kiba quickly turned around, only to receive a strong punch to the face. Kiba stumbled a bit, but before he could raise his guard, Issei stroked Kiba's sword with all the power he could muster. Kiba's sword left his hands and fell to the ground, 2 feet away from him. Kiba looked at his sword in shock. No one has ever managed to strip him of his sword thus far. He turned towards Issei, but like before, was met with another punch to the face, sending him crashing down. Kiba looked up and saw Issei standing over him with his sword raised, like before. Kiba shut his eyes tightly and waited for the strike to come. He heard a wooden sword dropping to the ground. He opened one eye and saw that Issei has dropped his sword and extended his hand towards Kiba. Kiba took Issei's hand and Issei pulled him back to his feet. Kiba nodded in thanks with a small smile on his face. Diedreg said, "Thank you, but Issei was the better man. Looks like I still have a way to go," Kiba said. Diedreg said. Kiba nodded and went under the tree Asia and Kaneko were sitting. Kaneko stood up and started to walk towards Issei just as Asia began to heal Kiba. Kaneko walked over to where Kiba was standing a few minutes ago and took her fighting stance silently. Issei remembered that Kaneko was Ria's rook and she told him that a rook is very powerful and has a very high defense. So he could expect that Kaneko is going to be a little difficult, but enjoyable at the same time. Kaneko was the first to start their fight by running towards Issei and threw a punch. Issei caught the punch with his hand, causing a small echo to be heard and for Issei to narrow his eyes a bit. For such a little girl, she sure did pack a punch. Kaneko retracted her hand and tried to kick Issei, but he jumped back. After jumping back, he immediately dashed towards her and threw a punch. Kaneko blocked the punch easily, but Issei then kicked her in the stomach, sending her to the floor. Kaneko quickly got up and narrowed her eyes at Issei. She knew that this is going to be a hard fight, so she needed to come up with a plan and fast. Issei disappeared. Kaneko looked above her and saw him coming towards her. She moved out of the way, making Issei punch the mountain, creating a small crater. Kaneko took the opportunity and punched Issei in the face. Kaneko's eyes widened. Her punch went unfazed by Issei. He didn't flinch, he didn't move from where he was, and he, as you probably have guessed, didn't have a reaction. Issei raised his hand from the crater and grabbed Kaneko's wrist. She tried to pull away from him, but she was shocked once more when she realized that she couldn't. "Impossible. How are you stronger than me?" Kaneko asked, not able to hide her shock from entering her voice. Issei just gave a mere shrug. He then pulled her down and kneed her in her stomach. This caused her to spit both and spit. When Issei removed his knee from her stomach, she grabbed her stomach and fell to her knees, gritting her teeth. Issei then grabbed her by the hair and lifted her up from the ground. He then punched her in the face, sending her back down. Kaneko hasn't recovered from the knee that Issei delivered. She was coughing up from her mouth. Issei approached the fallen girl and put one of his knees on her stomach where he previously kneed her. This caused her eyes to go wide as she felt a sharp pain go through her body as Issei's began to put pressure on her stomach. This caused her to cough and spit even more. Issei then raised his left arm in the air and clenched it into a fist. Before he could bring his fist down, someone interrupted him. Diedreg shouted out of Issei's right hand. Issei frowned at what the dragon told him, but he stopped. He removed his knee from her stomach, allowing her to stop coughing. Issei then looked at Asia, who was looking at him with a shocked expression, a hand over her mouth and eyes wide. Issei looked away from Asia. He walked backwards and pointed a finger at Kaneko. Asia apparently got the message as she stood up from where she was sitting and ran to where Kaneko was. She put her hands over her, a green glow emitting from her ring. "Issei, don't you think you could be a little bit less brutal when training with us? I know you want us to be strong, but if you are this brutal during the 10 days that we will stay here, let's just say that there may be some wounds that Asia's healing cannot reach. We don't want to fight whilst being injured now," Kiba said with a smile. Issei looked at him with his usual glare. Kiba only smiled, but Issei agreed with him. He'll tone down his brutalness a bit. After Asia finished healing Kaneko, she stood up and looked at Issei with a small frown. Issei ignored it though. "So what are we supposed to do until Riaz and Aquino finish their training?" Asia asked. Diedreg asked. Everyone nodded, having no objections. Before they could resume their training, they saw Riaz and Aquino come out of the forest with torn clothes, but it was enough to cover their ass. They also had black smudges on their cheeks. "So, how was training with Issei, Kiba, Kaneko?" Riaz asked with a smile. "Well, it could have gone better for us. You could say that we got the royal. Issei was a little bit more brutal to Kaneko than he was with me," Kiba said. "Oh, and how brutal was he?" Riaz asked as she looked at Issei. "Well, he kneed Kaneko in her stomach, causing her to spit. After that, he punched her in the face and put one of his knees to where he kneed her, causing her to spit out more." He was going to continue, but the Red Dragon Emperor stopped him. "I also told him to tone it down a bit with his brutal nature, only when training," Kiba said. Riaz looked at Issei with a disapproved look. "Issei, please refrain from injuring severely the members of my peerage. We might need a lot of training in order to defeat Riser and his peerage, but beating and injuring my servants will create the opposite of helping. Thank Mao that Asia was able to heal Kiba and Kaneko, but you must know that there might be some wounds that Asia's healing might not reach." Riaz scolded Issei, but repeated what Kiba said a few seconds ago. "I literally just told him that," Kiba muttered with a sweat drop. Issei only nodded. But other than that, what schedule did Issei create for you? Rias asked. When I'm training with Issei, I will mostly block his attacks so I can raise my defensive capabilities. Kaneko will do jogs with heavy weights in order to get faster. She will also spar with Issei from time to time, Kiba said. Rias nodded. Asia, what we have decided is that I want to somewhat expand your healing range and increase the power of your magic barrier. But that will have to wait until tomorrow. It's getting quite late, Rias said, looking at the now setting sun in the orange sky. Everybody nodded and made their way to the mansion. Asia said that she'll make dinner and Akino said that she'll help her. After an hour, dinner was ready. Everyone gathered in the kitchen and sat down on the table. Dinner consisted of ramen, yakisoba pan, and unadon rice. Whilst eating, Rias said, "This is quite delicious, Asia. I can't take all of the credit. Akino helped as well," Asia said with a blush and a smile. "I only helped. Asia did all of the cooking," Akino said with a smile. "Still, this is still very delicious," Kiba complimented with a charming smile. Asia only blushed from the praise she was receiving. When everyone was finished, Rias stretched and smiled. "Ah, that was quite nice. Let's take a bath before we go to sleep," Rias said, standing up from her chair. The girls only nodded. Issei rubbed his left eye and stood up from his chair as well. "Issei, would you like to join us in the bath as well?" Rias asked with a smile. Issei looked at her with wide eyes and a small tint of red on his cheeks. He was seriously not expecting this kind of proposal. "I don't mind, you know." Akino would like for Issei to join us in the bath, Rias asked, looking at her queen with a smile. Why, I don't particularly mind," Akino said, liking one of her fingers with a sadistic smile. I also want to bathe with Issei," Asia said loudly while blushing. Issei could only stare at the three girls in shock. What the hell is wrong with them, letting a guy have a bath with them? "Kaneko, you're the boss now. If you say no, then Issei will have to wait until we finish our bath," Rias said. All eyes were now on Kaneko. She was looking at Issei, who was also looking at her. She was also blushing as she looked down and mumbled something that Issei unfortunately heard. "What was that, Kaneko?" Rias asked. Kaneko looked like she was overheating. Her face turned even redder than a tomato. "I said mind," she mumbled, but only Issei heard her as he put his face in his hands. "What was that, Kaneko?" Akino asked with a teasing smile as she also had a small feeling on what Kaneko's answer was. Kaneko looked up a little and glared at Akino, who only laughed. But she decided to repeat her answer a little louder this time. "I said that I don't mind." "Well, it looks like you are joining us after all, Issei," Rias said with a cheerful smile. Issei then removed his face from his hands and looked at them, an idea forming in his mind. Diedreg asked inside Issei's head, a small hint of amusement in his voice. He looked at the group of girls with his usual glare, confusing them a little. He then started to do something unexpected. His hands went down to his belt and started to open it. All of the girls blushed at his sudden action and covered their eyes when they heard Issei unzipping the zipper of his pants. Well, all the girls that weren't Akino. She had her hands on her cheeks, covering her blush, but she was smiling as she saw Issei unzipping his pants. Issei, please wait until we enter the bath first," Asia shouted as she went tomato face. Issei looked at her, but decided to comply. He zipped the zipper of his pants and closed his belt, allowing the girls to look at him. "Well, this was clearly unexpected of you, Issei. But I think I kinda like that teasing moves that you put on. I want to see you tease us more often," Rias said with a smile, her blush staying as she said those words. Issei only shrugged. He turned and started to walk away, but stopped when he felt someone grab him. "And where do you think you're going, Issei? You're going to take that bath with us, whether you like it or not," Akino said with a smile. Issei only sighed. This is going to be so awkward for him. After the bath, Issei was lying on his bed, but he couldn't sleep. His mind was on the rating game that was coming up in the next 9 days. It was pointless thinking about it now, since they had a week to train, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. He just sighed and got out of bed. He opened the door to his balcony and looked at the full moon. The sky was filled with many stars tonight. He then heard a sigh from next to him. He turned to his right and saw Rias, wearing glasses and reading a small book. She was wearing a nightgown which mostly covered her body. It went down to her legs. She also had a frustrating look on her face. Issei approached Rias. Rias heard him walking towards her and looked at him with a smile. "Ah, Issei, shouldn't you be asleep by now?" Rias asked. Issei only shrugged. Diedreg asked, "Oh, it's nothing really, it just helps me think better." That is proof that I have been in the human world for a long time now," Rias said with a smile. "And this book contains a few things about the phoenixes, like their strengths for example. I'm looking to see if there are any weaknesses that we could use to our advantage, but sadly I see none." Rias continued with a sigh. Diedreg said, catching Rias and Issei's attention. "Really? What is it?" Rias asked. Diedreg said, "That doesn't really help us," Rias said with a sad sigh. Diedreg said. Rias nodded and started to form a plan in her head. Diedreg asked, causing Issei to raise a brow at his unexpected question. "It's because I'm a Gremory," Rias said. Diedreg asked, "Oh no, it's nothing like that. I'm very proud that I'm a Gremory. It's just people look at me and say it's Rias, the heir of the Gremory clan. I don't want to be seen like that. I want people to see me as Rias, or more importantly, a person instead of a devil. That's one of the reasons as to why I came to the human world. They treat me more as a person instead of a devil. I never felt like that in the underworld. That's why I don't want to marry Riser. If I marry him, then he would never let me come to the human world. I would also lose my peerage if I married Riser, Rias said. Issei looked at Rias. She was still not done. As I said, the person that I want to marry is someone that will love me as me, Rias, instead of the heiress of the Gremory clan. Riser sees me as the heiress of the Gremory family instead of Rias, Rias said. Diedrag said, I know. Too bad that my family don't listen to me, Rias said with a frown. Rias then yawned and stretched. She looked at Issei with a smile. I'm glad that you were here to listen to me, Issei. Good night, Rias said. She entered her own room and closed the door. Issei yawned as well. He entered his own room and closed the door to the balcony. He lied down to his bed and sleep overcome him. 9 days later, day of the raiding game. Issei was sitting on his bed at the mansion. 9 days have passed quite fast, in his opinion. Though he didn't admit it to Rias' peerage, he was quite proud of the people he trained. Kiba now had a better defense as he was able to block almost all of Issei's attacks, even some of the more unpredictable ones. Kaniko's speed increased as well. Every time that they sparred, Issei made sure that she wore something heavy. Due to that, her speed increased. Issei then heard a knock on his door. The door opened, revealing Asia. She was looking at him with a nervous face. Issei, can I stay with you until we leave for the raiding game? She asked. Issei nodded and pat the empty space beside him. Asia walked over to him and sat next to him on the bed. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Issei, I'm scared, Asia said in a shaku voice. Issei only put an arm around her, hugging her and stroking her hair. Diedrag said, what is it? Asia asked. Diedrag asked. Issei was sitting on the couch of the living room with his arms crossed and his eye closed. He opened it slightly and saw what was happening in the room. Rias was playing a game of chess with Akino, Asia watching them. Kiba was pacing back and forth, swinging his sword. He was wearing arm bracelets and shin bracelets to protect himself in the raiding game. And Kaniko was sitting next to Issei on the couch, licking a lollipop. Suddenly, there was someone knocking at the door. The door opened and in the room stepped Sona and her queen, Tsubaki. Sona, why are you here? Rias asked. I also came here to watch the raiding game between you and Riser, Sona said. Also, who else is going to be watching? Rias asked. Before Sona could answer, a red magic circle appeared from the floor. Out of it came Grafia. Rias, there's only 10 minutes before the match starts. Are you all prepared? Grafia asked. Everyone nodded. When it is time for the battle to begin, you will be teleported to the battlefield via magic circle. You'll be going to a different dimension that is only used for raiding games. With that, you'll be allowed to fight with your full power, Grafia said. Everyone nodded at what Grafia said. Rias, I see you won't be using your other bishop, Sona said. Issei and Asia raised their brows. They didn't know that Rias had another bishop. They both turned their heads and looked at Rias. Yes, unfortunately he's still too powerful for me to control. We will talk about him when the time is right, Rias said. Everyone nodded. I should also probably state that both the Phoenix clan and the Gremory clan will be watching this raiding game. The Mao will also be watching, so remember that, Grafia said. Rias and her peerage's eyes widened when they heard what Grafia said. Mao, my brother is going to be watching the raiding game, Rias asked in shock. Issei raised another brow in confusion. He remembered Riser say that Ria's brother left the Gremory clan, so he presumed that he also left the underworld. Kiba saw his confused expression and decided to answer to his confusion. Issei, Ria's brother is the Mao of the underworld. In the Great War, the Maoists were all in very critical condition and it caused their deaths. That's why the devils let the 4 strongest inherit the name of Mao. Ria's brother is the most powerful Mao, Kiba explained to Issei. Issei nodded, understanding. Issei then looked at the clock that was on the wall, as did Grafia. It was time. Everyone, it's time for the raiding game to begin. Please step on the magic circle, Grafia said. Everyone stepped on the magic circle like Grafia instructed them. Remember, you can't use magic circles once you enter the battlefield. Use them once the game officially ends. Grafia stated one final rule. Everyone once again nodded. Issei cracked his knuckles and his neck. He was feeling pretty pumped. At the battlefield arena, once they got teleported, Issei looked at his surroundings. He was again confused. They were still at the old school building. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the match. I am the maid, Grafia, and I will be the announcer for this raiding game. Grafia's voice was heard. Issei then understood that they weren't in the real world. They were in a replica. We have used both Ria's and Riser's opinion on a certain battlefield, and we have created the high school that Ria's goes to in the human world, Kyo Academy. The 2 teams have been separated to both their respected bases. Ria's base is the Occult Research Club room at the old school building, and Riser's base is the Student Council room at the newer building. Grafia said. Issei, will you please put this transceiver in your ear? Everyone is already wearing one, Akino said with a smile, giving Issei the transceiver. The transceiver is going to be used so we can communicate with each other. Rias explained the use. Issei nodded. I believe that it's time for the raiding game to officially begin. The game will continue until dawn in human time. Let the game begin, Grafia said, starting the game. Ring, ring, ring. The school bell went off, signaling the start. Issei headed for the door. He was really fired up. Issei, please wait a moment. We have to come up with a good plan in order to take down Riser, Rias said, sitting down in the chair behind the desk. Issei gave a long sigh and walked back to where everyone was. He doesn't like to wait when he knows enemies are close. Okay everyone, we have to take down Riser's pawns first. If he manages to promote them to queens, then we'll be in trouble, Ria said with her arms crossed. She was serious mode right now. Since the battlefield is of the academy, we have a small advantage in hiding spots, setting up traps and a few shortcuts. Yudo, did you do what I told you a few days ago? Rias asked. Yes, Rias, Yudo said, placing on the desk a map of the entire school. As you can see, there's a forest here. I think it's safe to assume that it's our territory since it's close to our base. Though we should probably keep up our guards if we enter Riser's territory. They might put traps in a few places, so be careful. Rias warned her peerage and Issei. Rias, shouldn't we send someone to the gym first? If we manage to capture the gym, then we will have access to both new and old buildings. We could also restrain the enemy's movements, Kiba said. Rias smiled and nodded at Kiba's plan. I agree with that plan, Yudo. We capture the gym first. If I'm correct, then Riser is going to place a rook in there with maybe 2 pawns. And since it's inside a building, it's better to use a rook with a very destructive ability than a knight with mobility, Rias said with 2 fingers on her chin. Yudo, Kaneko, take the map with you and put traps in the forest. Mark the places that you place the traps, Rias instructed. The knight and rook nodded silently, taking the map and leaving the room. Everyone else, stand by here for now. Ah, Akino, Rias said. Yes, Rias, Akino asked with her usual smile. Once Yudo and Kaneko come back, can you cast a few illusions and some mist around the forest and sky? Rias asked her queen. Akino nodded. The plan has begun. Issei looked down at his hand and saw that there was a small green glow on it. Issei transformed his right hand into the gauntlet. Issei, does Diedrag want to say something? Rias asked with a raised brow. Issei nodded. Diedrag asked. Rias nodded. Diedrag said. Rias widened her eyes a bit and bit her thumb in disappointment. Darn, I forgot one of the most important things about the Phoenixes. And to think I prepared for this game well, Rias muttered in disappointment. Diedrag asked. Well, I would keep one for myself and give one to my queen. Why are you asking? Rias asked. Diedrag stated. So, you notice that his bishop is also his sister, Rias said with a smile. Diedrag said. You don't have to worry about Ravel. She doesn't fight, she only stands in the sidelines, Rias said. Diedrag said nothing. After that, they all fell into silence. Rias was drinking her tea, which was prepared by Akino, with Asia and Akino, and Issei was sitting on the sofa with his eye closed. Issei, can you come here for a moment? Issei heard Ria's voice. Issei opened his eye and stood up from the sofa. He walked towards Rias with a raised brow. Sit, I want to ask you something, Rias said. Issei nodded and sat down beside her. Issei, why have you decided to help me? You could have walked away from all of this. Why didn't you? Rias asked. Issei looked at her for a small moment. Diedrag asked. Rias nodded. Diedrag said. Rias just sat there with her eyes slightly wide. She suddenly pulled Issei in a tight hug, causing the latter to widen his eyes a bit at the sudden movement. Thank you, Issei, thank you so much, Rias said with a happy smile. Issei just patted her back awkwardly. Rias then let go of Issei once she saw that Kiba and Kaneko were now back. I see that you guys returned, Rias said, standing up. Kiba and Kaneko nodded. Alright, I will now set the teams. For now, Akino, you will stay here with me and Asia. Kiba and Kaneko, you will go to the basketball court. Issei, can you handle the gym all alone? Rias asked. Issei nodded while cracking his neck, making Rias smile. Outside the gym, Issei managed to walk to the gym without any problems. Once he reached the entrance door, he raised his left leg and kicked the door. The door flew back and hit the other side of the gym. Issei stepped inside and saw 4 girls from Riser's peerage. He recognized only Mira, because she was one of the members that he fought in the clubroom. He then saw her outfit consists of a navy blue kippah with gold accents, a white sash around her stomach, and black, low-heeled shoes. The kippah is open at the chest area, giving view to her ass and cleavage. She also wears black arm guards over her forearms. She does not wear any undergarments. She is also a very well-endowed young woman of Chinese descent with shoulder-length black hair and blue-green eyes. Her hair has 2 Chinese-style buns on both sides of her head, while the front features bangs that form a slight V-shape across her forehead. Issei then turned his attention to the 2 young girls with turquoise hair, which they keep tied to one side of their head with a yellow ribbon and blue eyes. Both of their outfits consist of gym uniforms, which consist of white t-shirts with blue accents, black leggings, and blue sneakers over knee-high socks, similar to the Kyo Academy's girls' gym uniforms, albeit without the logo. They also wear an orange wristband on their right wrist. They seem to be carrying 2 different colored gym bags with something big inside. So, you were the person that Riser wanted us to look out for. You honestly don't look like much, the Chinese girl said with a smirk. This caused Issei to glare at her, which she ignored. You will pay for humiliating me in front of Riser and my friends, Mira shouted as she grabbed her stick and dashed at Issei, shouting. Issei sighed. She was making the same mistake again. Before she could strike him, he parried her stick, just like last time. She managed to keep her balance this time, causing her to smirk. I was training very hard. I won't go out that easy, arg. Mira was cut off when Issei planted his knee deep in her stomach. She fell to her knees, barely breathing from the powerful blow. She began to glow a blue color before disappearing. Riser's pawn, retired. Grafia announced. Foolish girl, hasn't she heard of the phrase to speak in battle is a sin? Diedrag said out loud. The three girls narrowed their eyes at Issei. The two young girls opened their bags and pulled out 2 chainsaws. Let's split him in 2, one said with a thirsty grin. Yay, split, 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 just like Panada. The other one said with the same kind of grin. Issei couldn't help but sweat drop at the 2 girls. Your guard is down. Issei heard the Chinese girl shout. He raised his hand and blocked her incoming punch with ease. One of the twins was running at him with her chainsaw from the right, while the other was running at him from the left. Once they were close enough, Issei jumped away from them to the other side of the room. This almost caused the 2 to collide with each other. Almost. The rook dashed at him once more, throwing punches. Issei was dodging all of her attacks. He suddenly sidestepped to the right once she threw a right punch. He grabbed her arm and gave a downwards elbow on top of her own elbow, causing it to break. He wasn't done though. He grabbed her from the back of her head and pulled her downwards, delivering 2 knees to her stomach. He then jumped and elbowed her on the top of her head, causing her to fall to the floor. She didn't retire though. Issei then turned his attention at the twins. He took a step back once he saw one of them almost cut his face with the chainsaw. Before she could recover, Issei punched her with his right hand, sending her to the floor. He turned his attention to the other twin. He dashed towards her. Once he was close, he disappeared. The pawn's eyes widened. She was forcibly turned around and was grabbed by the neck by none other than Issei. He lifted her up, choking her and causing her to drop her chainsaw. Issei then slammed her to the ground and put his other hand on her neck and began to choke her. She was trying to kick and punch him, but her efforts were weak. Her eyes slowly rolled to the back of her head as she let her hands fall to the side. Issei removed his hands once he saw her unconscious. Her body began to glow blue as she also disappeared. Riser's 3 pawns and 1 knight retired. Grafia announced. Issei made a grunting noise. Kaneko and Kiba are doing very well. Issei then turned his attention at the rook. He saw her slowly standing up, holding her right arm. She was gritting her teeth in pain. Issei dashed towards her and kneed her in the stomach, causing her to spit. She fell to her knees while spitting. Issei then grabbed her head and kneed her in the face. Once she fell to the ground, she disappeared in blue particles. Riser's rook retired. Ria's rook retired. Grafia announced. The announcement made Issei narrow his eyes a bit. So, Kaneko has been taken out. Issei left the gym and headed towards the basketball court. Basketball court. Kiba blocked an attack from Riser's other knight, Carlamine. He was alone now, because Riser's rook, Isabella, took out Kaneko while she was fighting Riser's 2 pawns, Nai and Lai. Once Kaneko finished with the 2 cat girls, Isabella stroked from behind. You are pretty good, Knight of Gremory, Carlamine said as she backed away. Kiba smiled a little at the enemy's praise. Thank you, you are very good as well, Kiba said. Come on Carlamine, finish this duel already, Isabella said impatiently. Isabella is a woman with short, light brown hair and gray eyes. Her hair has 3 red highlights across, and wears a plain white mask which covers the right side of her face. Her outfit consists of a black jacket and matching jeans. The jacket has wide shoulders and a wide collar, and features 3 leather straps on both her arms. It is also slightly open, revealing her rather large ass and cleavage, and it is cut off at her midriff. Her jeans have a section on her right pant leg cut off, revealing some of her thighs and butt, and also feature 3 leather straps on her calves, just below the ankles, and 2 extra straps on her right pant leg to keep it in place. She also wears black fighting gloves and boots to enhance her blows. Carlamine sighed. You guys never let me have my fun, do you? Carlamine said, annoyed. Just finish this duel. Isabella finished with a sigh. After Isabella said that, Carlamine's sword was lit up with fire. Kiba looks at her sword with a bit of surprise in his eyes. That surprise soon disappeared, causing Kiba to smile. Very nice. But I also have a little surprise for you. This isn't everything to my sacred gear. Here, allow me to show you, Kiba said with a smile. Carlamine stayed silent, but was staring at the knight with interest. Freeze, Kiba whispered. This caused the sword he was holding to be covered with ice. The ice soon began to break, revealing a blue blade with frost covering it. Now, I hate to break the bad news to you, but this sword deletes all types of fire. Don't believe me? Go on and try to strike me with your flame sword, Kiba said with a smile. No, you have to be lying, and I'll prove it right now, Carlamine shouted. Carlamine sprinted at Kiba and clashed her flaming sword with his icy one. This caused Carlamine's flames to die down as her sword was covered with ice. She backed away from Kiba once she realized what happened to her weapon. Once she got at a safe distance, her sword shattered. She grabbed a smaller sword that was settling to her thigh. She held her sword up high. I am a member of the House of Phoenix. We rule over the fire and the wind. Whirlwind of fire, Carlamine shouted as the basketball court was covered in a wind of fire. Carlamine, be careful with that. You have allies here as well, you know, Isabella shouted. So, this is how you want to win. By trying to burn us alive. Again, I'm gonna have to disappoint you, Kiba said, the smile never leaving his face. Kiba took a deep breath and extended his sword forward, which was dripping slightly with water because of the high temperature. Kiba swung his sword to the left and with that, the storm of fire that surrounded the basketball court got absorbed into Kiba's sword. Kiba smiled. I'm impressed. It has been a while for me to have summoned 2 demonic swords. Kiba said, this is very interesting. Are you able to steal other people's sacred gears and use them as our own? Carlomene asked with a hand to her chin, her anger disappearing. No, I do not steal other people's sacred gears. I simply create them, Kiba said. I'm sorry, but I don't think I follow, Carlomene said, titling her head to the side in confusion. My sacred gear's name is Sword Birth. As you have already witnessed, it allows me to create any type of demonic sword. That's its true ability. Here, let me show you, Kiba explained. Kiba then raised his hand that was holding the ice sword, the tip of the blade looking downwards. When he did that, multiple swords appeared from beneath the ground, many having different shapes and colors. Carlomene smirks a little after seeing what Kiba did. A demonic sword wielder is a great fortune. It appears that it's destiny that I keep meeting swordsmen with unique and special swords, Carlomene said. Kiba raised a curious brow. This is getting interesting. Wait, you met another person like me, one who uses demonic swords? Kiba asked. Not exactly. The person was wielding a holy sword, Carlomene reviled. This caused Kiba's expression to darken. Carlomene feels a chill running up and down her spine as she felt killing intent spilling out of Kiba. I'm going to ask you this once and you better answer me. Who is this holy sword wielder? Kiba asked in a low yet very cold voice. You appear to have some sort of a connection with that holy sword wielder. But instead of answering you with words, I will answer to you with my sword, Carlomene shouted as she sprinted at Kiba with her sword raised. Kiba said nothing and raised his ice sword, covering half of his face with it. Suddenly, a red light passed Kiba and was headed towards Carlomene. Her eyes widened. She didn't have time to block the red blast, so she closed her eyes as she felt pain engulf her body. Once the red light was gone, Carlomene was laying on her side, her armor destroyed. She was also burned a little, since she had a few black spots on her skin. Her body was soon covered with a blue light. It then dissolved. Riser's knight has retired, Grafia announced. Kiba stood there wide-eyed. He slowly turned around and saw the man responsible for the attack. It was Issei. His right hand that was covered in the red dragon emperor's gauntlet was raised forwards. 3 of his fingers were held up, the other 2 closed tight. Once Issei saw the knight disappeared, he lowered his hand to his sides and looked at the remaining enemies with half-closed eyes. Issei, Kiba muttered. Another one of Gremari's servants. Marion, Shuria, attack him. I'll take care of the knight, Isabella shouted as she charged at Kiba, Marion and Shuria charging at Issei. Issei also charged at the 2 pawns. Once he was close, he suddenly slowed down, confusing the other 2. He roundhouse kicked Marion in the stomach, causing her to vomit and spit. The kick was powerful enough to send her all the way to where she came from, which was the left side of the basketball court. She hit the pole that supported the basket. Her body was covered in a blue light. She disappeared shortly. Riser's pawn retired, Grafia announced. Issei then turned his attention towards the remaining pawn, Shuria. She was staring at him with wide eyes, her mouth open in shock. Issei could already smell her fear. He slowly started to approach her as she started to walk backwards. Master Riser, retire me, please, Shuria began to shout with her eyes closed. Issei could even see a few tears dropping down her face. Her wish was granted though. She was soon covered in the blue light, disappearing in a matter of seconds. Riser has retired 1 pawn, Grafia then announced. Issei then turned his attention towards Kiba and Isabella. The fight between them was tight. Isabella was using her strength and high defense so that Kiba couldn't get too close, but if he did, then she would black it. Kiba was using his high speed to his advantage. Issei calmly walked over to where the 2 were fighting. Kiba and Isabella backed away from each other, trying to catch their breath. Once Kiba turned around, he gave a small smile. Ah, so you have already finished your fight with the 2 other pawns, Kiba said. Issei didn't say anything. Issei, Rias talked to me while I was fighting with this rook. Akino is making her way over here. She is going to use her lightning to try and take out some of them. Once she tells us, we will jump out of the way. Understood. Kiba explained the plan to Issei. Issei nodded this time. So, do you want to fight her, or should I fight her? Kiba asked. Issei responded by walking in front of Kiba with his hands inside his pockets. Alright then, I need a breather, Kiba said, stabbing the ground with his sword. Issei was the one to start by disappearing. Isabella only smirked. She has faced people who did this trick one too many times before. She turned around and swung a fist. Her instincts were correct, because she managed to hit Issei in the nose. Issei put one hand to his nose and saw that it was bleeding. Isabella, seeing Issei distracted, sprinted towards Issei, ready to deliver one more punch. Issei suddenly transformed his right hand into the boosted gear, charging an attack. Once Isabella was close enough, Issei opened the palm of his right hand and let the blast escape his palm. D-Drag's voice was heard shouting. The red blast fully engulfed Isabella. Once the blast cleared fully, Isabella was nowhere to be seen. Riser's rook has retired, Grafia announced. Issei let the gauntlet disappear from his right arm, using the same one to wipe his nose of the. Once he was sure that his nose was not bleeding, he put his hand back into his pocket and walked towards Kiba. Good job, Issei. That was fairly quick, Kiba said with a smile. Issei nodded and turned to look at the remaining servants. There were only 2 girls left. One of them wore a kimono and had black hair with gray eyes. The other one was wearing an outfit consisting of a light purple dress with dark purple accents and a blue bow at the front. At the back, 3 feather-like extensions mimicking a bird's tail protrude from the dress, which, when combined with her wings of fire, give her a bird-like appearance. She also had blonde hair and blue eyes. Issei narrowed his eyes at the 2 girls. His eyes then widened when he heard an explosion coming from behind him. He turned around and saw a pile of smoke coming from inside a crater, which was where Kiba was standing. Issei managed to see a blue light before it disappeared in a matter of seconds. Ria's knight has retired, Rafia announced. Issei looked up and saw a woman. He remembered her easily. She was the woman that Riser was kissing and fondling in the clubroom, also known as Yubaluna. She smirked down at Issei. So you were the one that took down most of our members. I have to say that I'm a bit impressed. But will you be enough to handle me? Yubaluna said as she threw fireball at Issei. Issei raised his left hand, grabbed the fireball with his hand. The fireball exploded with a loud boom. Haha, you really are a fool. Did you really expect to catch my fireballs that easily? Yubaluna asked with a smirk. Right when she was about to turn around, she saw a pair of red wings coming out of the smoke. Once it cleared, Yubaluna saw Issei standing still. His left hand was still raised, though the sleeve of his shirt was torn. So it appears that you're stronger than you look. No matter, I'll handle you properly this time, Yubaluna said, the smirk never leaving her face. Just as Issei was about to attack, he felt someone shout at his ear. Issei, stand a bit back. I'm about to use my lightning. Issei recognized the voice of Akino. Issei jumped at the other side of the basketball court. He watched as Yubaluna put on a confused look. She was then struck by lightning, sending her down on the stone ground. Once the bright yellow lightning stopped striking, there was nothing left but a giant crater at the center of the basketball court. Issei once again looked up and saw Akino with her left hand raised and a smile on her face. Issei flapped his dragon wings and flew towards her. Once he flew to where Akino was, Akino smiled and said, I'm sorry for being late, Issei, but I think it's going to be best if we both return to Rias. Akino said as she turned her back. And where do you both think you're going? We haven't finished just yet. A female voice was heard. Akino and Issei turned their heads around and saw Yubaluna slowly ascending from the crater. Covered her lips and forehead. Her clothes were also a bit burnt. She had a few burnt marks on her legs and feet. Oh my, still alive. Guess I'm gonna have to strike you down once more, Akino said as she raised her left hand once more. Yubaluna then took out a small red object from in between her ass. Issei looked at the small object curiously. Dreg said inside Issei's head. Issei disappeared quickly and reappeared in front of Yubaluna. Akino slightly lowered her left hand as she saw Issei's actions. Yubaluna was staring at Issei with an expression containing shock and a little bit of fear. Issei then grabbed her right hand forcibly, causing her palm to open. He grabbed the phoenix tears from her hand and put it inside his pocket. He let go of Yubaluna's hand and turned around. Hey, that's mine, Yubaluna shouted. She reached out and grabbed Issei's right arm. Issei turned around and punched her in the face, sending her down in the crater once more. Issei approached Akino and nodded at her. Akino understood what he meant and nodded back. She once again raised her left hand. Yellow lightning covered the basketball court. Once Akino finished with her attack, she licked her fingers with a seductive smile. Ah, that was satisfying. Let's go, Issei, Akino said as they both made their way towards the clubroom. Riser's queen and bishop have retired, Grafia announced. Upon reaching the clubroom, Akino widened her eyes. She saw Riaz on top of the roof, her clothes torn and a few burnt marks on her face. Riser was also there, a smirk on his face. Riser then disappeared in his own flames and reappeared behind Asia. He grabbed Asia by her arm and lifted her up. Asia began to whimper in fear and pain. Issei widened his eyes at Riser's actions. He began to shake with rage as the only thing that he saw was now red. Issei flew at Riser as fast as he could. Once Issei was close, he punched Riser in the face, sending him behind the clubroom. He has also let go of Asia's hand. Why, Issei, he heard Riaz shout, but he ignored her. He jumped down to where Riser was and walked towards him. Riser quickly recovered from Issei's attack. He burst through his own flames and grabbed Issei's face. He threw Issei with all his power inside the old school building. Issei went through 2 walls and stopped once he was back outside. He quickly stood up, but Riser punched him in the face. Issei managed to stay on his feet. Issei clenched his left hand and tried to punch Riser. Riser dodged and covered his left knee in flames. Riser lifted his knee, but it was blocked by Issei's elbow. This caused Riser to flinch a bit in pain. Issei noticed Riser being distracted with pain and managed to land a punch on Riser's face. Riser stumbled a bit, but quickly recovered. He then covered his hands in flames and threw fire at Issei. Issei raised his hands and blocked the flames from reaching his face. Riser then sprinted forwards and sidestepped to the left. He lifted his knee and hit Issei in the stomach. Issei spit, but managed to back away in order to catch his breath. Kid, I have to say that this battle is pretty much tied at the moment, but I have to warn you that I am done playing games. This is where I get serious, Riser shouted as was engulfed in his own flames. Issei instantly put his guard on. Riser was quickly in front of Issei. Issei blocked an incoming punch by crossing his arms in an X shape. The punch though sends Issei a few feet back, but he was still standing. Issei leaned a bit back, managing to dodge a hook from Riser, though Riser managed to punch him with his right hand while Issei was still leaned back. Issei fell to his knees, but quickly stood back up. Before he could put his guard up once more, Riser kicked him in the stomach. While Issei was clenching his stomach, Riser again punched him in the face. Issei fell to the ground as Riser stood on top of him. Riser then started to punch him in the face, his hands covered in fire. Issei kicked Riser off, sending him a few feet back. Issei stood back up, though with a bit of difficulty. Issei dashed towards Riser and speared him. Issei repeatedly punched Riser in the face, and then Riser rolled him over, punching him several times, before getting kicked off by Issei. Both men were now panting from tiredness. Riser then reached for his pocket and pulled out a small red bottle. Issei immediately recognized the small bottle as a bottle of Phoenix Tears. "Thank Mao, I told Ravel to give me her Phoenix Tears. Once I drink this, all of my injuries will be healed and you will lose," Riser said with a smirk. Issei then pulled out his own Phoenix Tears as he watched Riser's eyes widen in shock. "Where did you manage to get that?" Riser asked, though already knowing the answer. Issei didn't say anything as he opened the bottle and drank the Phoenix Tears. And that's how Phoenix Tears are used, right? If not, tell me in the reviews and I'll try to fix it whenever I can. Riser scoffed, but drank his own Phoenix Tears as well. Once they were both done, they threw the empty bottle to the ground. The small bottle broke easily. Riser's flames intensified. Issei then manifested his boosted gear in his right arm. He closed his eyes and let power flow through his body. A powerful crimson-red aura engulfed Issei as his boosted gear's green emerald began to glow. D-Drag's voice was heard from the boosted gear. The red aura continued to intensify as the ground began to shake. Riser was watching Issei with shock and interest. Issei's body then started to grow a bit larger and a bit more masculine. His eyes started to glow green and his wings extended. He was slowly engulfed in a red armor. Once the aura cleared, Issei was completely covered in the red armor. D-Drag's voice was heard once more. The green eyes took a bright glow. Issei looked up at Riser, who had the same expression on his face. After a few seconds, Riser smirked. I see this is going to get even more interesting. Let's see how powerful you have become now that you have entered Balance Breaker. Riser shouted as he intensified his flames. Issei also began to intensify his red aura. They both dashed at each other, punching each other's hands. A small crater was created while sparks of electricity were coming out of their clenched fists. Issei backed away and disappeared before his feet touched the ground. Riser turned around and blocked a fist from Issei. Issei then again disappeared and reappeared next to him. Before Riser could react, Issei uppercutted Riser, sending him flying in the air. Riser did a backflip and extended his own wings, which were now covered in fire. Riser covered his hand in flames and threw a firebolt at Issei. Issei backhanded the firebolt away from him. His eyes widened behind his mask as he saw that he accidentally deflected the fireball towards Rias. Rias and Aquino raised their hands and formed a shield. The fireball hit the shield, breaking it instantly, but leaving the two girls unharmed. Issei gave a small sigh of relief. He turned towards Riser, though he was surprised when Riser punched him in the face, shattering the red mask that covered his face. Issei also did a backflip and extended his wings, causing him to hover in the air. Riser looked at Issei with a smirk. "Let me ask you a question, kid. Why is it that you don't speak? Are you afraid? You have a problem with your voice? Or is it possibly a traumatic experience, possibly involving those scars?" Riser asked Issei with a look that said, "I know everything." Issei's eyes widened. Riser knew. Riser knew all about the whole thing. Issei, with anger in his eyes, dashed at Riser with amazing speed. Riser's eyes widened, not expecting the amazing burst of speed. Issei punched Riser, who blocked the attack, but was sent down to the floor. He was still standing though. Issei again used his great speed and tried to punch Riser again, who blocked the attack just barely. D-Drag said inside Issei's head. Issei removed the armor from his leg and dug into his pocket. He pulled out yet another small bottle, though this one was white instead of red. Issei opened the bottle and splashed what looked like water on Riser's face. Riser began to scream as he felt the water burn his skin. This was no actual water. It was holy water. Flashback. D-Drag asked the former maiden. "Why yes, I have some with me." "Why do you ask?" Asia asked. D-Drag asked. Asia nodded. D-Drag said. Asia again nodded and went to get the holy water. After a few minutes, she came back holding a small bottle. "I brought the holy water," she said with a smile. Issei also gave a small smile. He patted her on the head, causing her to blush and smile more. D-Drag said. Issei nodded and grabbed the bottle from Asia's hands. He opened it and let a few drops on his boosted gear. D-Drag shouted. Suddenly, the boosted gear began to glow white. It started to change color, changing into an orange color. Then it changed into a pink color. Then into a yellow color. It changed into all the colors of the rainbow and some that weren't in the rainbow. Wow, Asia said as she stared at the boosted gear in shock and awe. D-Drag said to his partner. Issei only nodded with determination in his eyes. End of flashback. Where the hell did you get holy water? Riser asked, the holy water still burning his skin. Neither D-Drag nor Issei answered him. Issei then did what he did before. He splashed all the holy water that was in the bottle on his boosted gear. D-Drag shouted. The boosted gear began to glow in a mixture of colors once more. Issei dashed towards Riser and punched him in the stomach with his boosted gear. This caused Riser to spit out. He grabbed his stomach and took a few steps back, leaning forwards. He then fell to his knees, still in pain. Issei then punched him in the face with his boosted gear, sending him to the ground. Issei full-mounted Riser and began to punch him over and over again with his boosted gear, which was still glowing into a mixture of colors. Please stop. Please don't kill my brother," a voice said, which was coming from behind Issei. Issei slightly turned his head and looked at the person responsible for the words. He saw the same girl that he saw when he was fighting that girl, Isabella. The one with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, also known as Ravel Phoenix, Riser's little sister. Issei ignored Ravel and continued to punch Riser. He managed to punch Riser 2 more times before he felt someone cling to his waist. He turned and looked down. He saw Ravel hugging him tightly. Please don't kill my brother. Please," Ravel pleaded in a shaky voice, tears spilling down her blue eyes. Issei felt his rage die down and his eyes also softened a bit. He lowered his arms down and his boosted gear gained its normal crimson color. "Brother, please, just surrender, it's not worth it anymore," Ravel said. Riser was still lying there, not moving at all. He wasn't even regenerating his wounds. "Brother, please, say something. Say something," Ravel shouted. Riser then managed to open his eyes and looked at his sister. He then muttered something that only Ravel and Issei heard. I surrender," Riser managed to say. Riser's and Ravel's body began to glow in a bright blue light. After a few seconds, they both disappeared. "Riser has surrendered. Ria's Gremory is the winner of the raiding game," Grafia announced. Issei was then teleported to another area. He was in another room. The room had a giant glass window with a few couches. Near the couches were Sona and Tsubaki. Next to them were 2 other people. One had long red hair and green emerald eyes just like Ria's. The other was a woman who had long black hair and pigtails. She also had pink eyes just like Sona's. "Issei, you did it." Issei then felt someone hug him tightly from behind. He also felt 2 giant melons sticking to his back. "Issei, I'm so proud of you. You managed to defeat Riser." Akino hugged his left arm. "I knew you were strong, Issei," Asia said, hugging his right arm with a happy smile. Issei then started to walk forwards, slowly and a little woozy. He was also breathing heavily. "Issei, are you okay?" Riaz asked with concern as she walked up to Issei. Issei ignored her and continued to walk forwards, his steps becoming even woozier. "Issei, what's wrong?" Riaz shouted, her worries growing. Issei looked at the people in the room, before falling face first on the floor, unconscious. "Issei!" Riaz, Asia and Akino shouted as they ran towards the fallen Issei. Issei groaned as he slowly opened his eye. His vision was a bit hazy and the bright light that was shining on top of him did not help things at all. After a short while, his vision was fully restored. Issei looked around the room that he was in. He was in a hospital room. White walls with a bit of blue mixed in, white metal floor. There were 2 windows at the right side of the room, giving a view of the outside. There were 3 chairs in the room, 2 of them being occupied by Riaz and Akino, who were asleep. There were 2 stands that had red flowers in vases. There was also a door in the corner, which Issei guessed that it was a bathroom. Issei sat up on the bed and rubbed his left eye with a yawn. He was extremely tired and his body was a little sore. He heard Dietrich say. Issei nodded. Dietrich said. Issei again nodded. He was going to have to train a bit more if he wanted to stay in balance breaker for a longer period of time. Issei put his naked feet on the cold floor and stood up. He was a bit wobbly, but he managed to walk to the bathroom. He opened the door and entered. After finishing his bath, he exited the bathroom and walked back to his bed. As he sat down, he saw Ria stir a bit. She slowly opened her eyes, only for them to go wide once she saw Issei was awake. "Issei, Issei," she shouted as she jumped and hugged him. Issei just stood still, awkwardly hugging her back. "Issei, you made me very worried. For you to suddenly pass out like that, please, never do that again," Ria said as she pulled back, tears in her eyes. Ria then smiled as she began to close the distance between her and Issei. His eyes widened as Ria kissed him on the lips. It wasn't deep, but it was full of love. She pulled away with a smile. "That was my first kiss. It's what every girl treasures. It's also your reward for ending my engagement with Razor." "Thank you very much, Issei," Ria said. Issei just sat there with his mouth a bit open and his eyes wide. He just got kissed by a girl that he barely knew. He knew her for about 2 weeks and she just kissed him on the lips. Issei just sighed. He was too tired to think about it. My Riaz, you stepped up your game, I see." Issei then heard a female voice. He looked behind Riaz and saw that Akino was awake and was staring at them with a smile on her face. "Akino, how long have you been awake for?" Riaz asked as she blushed. "When you shouted Issei's name and you jumped on him," Akino said, still smiling. Riaz just stood there a bit embarrassed. The door then opened and in stepped the rest of Ria's peerage. "Ah, you're finally awake, Issei. Gave us quite a scare there," Kiba said with a smile. "Issei," Asia shouted as she also jumped and hugged him. Issei smiled at the blonde girl and hugged her back, patting her head. Kaneko was standing next to Kiba silently, but she also had a smile on her face. Another man then entered the room. It was the same man that he saw in the room that he was before he passed out. He had shoulder-length red hair and his eyes were the same color as Ria's. He looked at Issei with a smile. "So, you're Issei Hayaudu. Riaz has told me a lot about you. My name is Surzech Lucifer. Glad to meet you, Issei Hayaudu," Surzech said with a smile as he extended his hand. Issei looked at him for a small while. He slowly extended his hand as well and they shook hands. "Brother, what are you doing here?" Riaz asked. "I just came here to see Issei." You don't mind if I call you Issei, right? Surzich asked. Issei only nodded, saying that he didn't mind. I'm glad. As I was saying, I came here to see how Issei was doing and to congratulate him on his victory over Riser. Congratulations, Issei. A fight between the two of you was pretty interesting to say the least, Surzich said with a smile. Issei only nodded. Big brother, is that all that you have come here to say? Riaz asked. Yes, I almost forgot. Issei, how would you feel if Riaz moved in with you? Surzich asked. Issei was surprised by that question. He looked at Riaz and saw that she was a little nervous on what his answer will be. D-Drake spoke out of Issei's right hand. Hello, Red Dragon Emperor D-Drake, Surzich responded. D-Drake said, causing everyone in the room to raise their brows. Oh, and what problem are we dealing with? Surzich asked. D-Drake said, causing everyone in the room to widen their eyes. Do you mean the fallen angels that you took when you left the church after saving Asia? Riaz asked. Riaz, did you know about this? Surzich asked as he looked at his little sister. I only knew that he took them with him. I didn't know that he spared them. Riaz said. I see. Issei, why did you take the fallen angels with you? And why did you spare them? Surzich asked. D-Drake said, gaining everyone's interest. What do you propose, Red Dragon Emperor? Surzich asked. D-Drake asked Riaz. Riaz put a hand on her chin, thinking about that offer. She wanted to stay with Issei, but to have the enemy this close to her is going to be a problem. Riaz, do you want to stay with Issei? Surzich asked. Yes, I do. Riaz answered truthfully. Then I see no problem in you participating in this small experiment. I also want to end the hate between the factions. This might be a good opportunity, Surzich said with a smile. All right, big brother. I'll take part in the experiment. Issei, I hope that you take good care of me, Riaz said with a smile as she bowed. Issei nodded slowly. Looks like things are about to get even levier in his house and life. Wait. I also want to move in with Issei, Asia shouted with a red face. Everyone besides Surzich was shocked at Asia's words. I think that can be arranged. I was looking for a house for you, so Issei's house is the perfect fit. But, won't it be bothersome to live under the same roof with the fallen angels that killed you? Riaz asked. Well, it is going to be a bit weird living in the same house with your killers. But I think that we can all start fresh. And if they try anything, then I'm sure that Issei and the rest of you will protect me, right? Asia asked. Everyone in the room nodded as Issei patted Asia on the head, earning a happy smile from the ex-nun. Then it settled. Me and Asia are moving in with you, Issei. I hope you take care of both of us, Riaz said again as she bowed. Again, D-Drake said inside Issei's head. Issei then looked at the two girls. They were both happy that they were going to move in with Issei. But he made a promise to his dead family. Once he gets his revenge, he's going to join them. And no one will be able to change his mind. That's right, once you get revenge and it end your life. It's the smartest thing that you'll be doing in your pathetic life anyway, the voice said. Issei flinched at the voice's choice of words, though the others didn't notice. But he agreed with the voice on some degree. It is going to be the smartest thing he'll ever do. After Issei and the others got released from the Underworld's hospital, Grafia took them back to the clubroom of the old school building via magic circle. Once she teleported away, Issei and Riaz gathered Asia's belongings from the clubroom. Once that was done, they walked to Issei's house. Once they reached Issei's house, Issei took out his key and unlocked the door. Kid your ba devils. What are they doing here? Calawarner asked, scared as she summoned a light spear. Middle also wore the same expression as she also summoned a light spear. D-Drake said. Issei then stepped to the side a bit, revealing Asia. Oh, Asia, you're alive. How? Middle asked, shocked. I was the one who revived her. She is now one of my servants, Riaz said with her eyes narrowed. D-Drake said. Everyone nodded and walked to the living room. Issei sat in the middle of the big sofa, Riaz and Asia sitting next to him. The two fallen angels sat on the other side. D-Drake said. WWHAAT. Both Middle and Calawarner shouted. D-Drake asked. The fallen angels nodded silently. D-Drake said. The two fallen looked at each other. They then looked back at Issei. Well, I think we can agree. We'll try and get along with the devils, Middle said. D-Drake said. The two fallen looked at the blonde girl that was fidgeting around in her sit. Asia. We both want to apologize for killing you. Though I doubt that you'll forgive us, we still want you to know that we're very sorry, Calawarner said, Middle agreeing with her. No, it's all right. I forgive the both of you, Asia said with a smile. The two fallen smiled in relief. D-Drake asked. Well, Azazel wanted us to keep you alive and watch you from the distance, but then we got a change of order from Cockabeel, saying that Azazel said to kill you, Calawarner said. Issei narrowed his eyes at the two fallen. D-Drake said. How are you so sure about this? Riaz asked. D-Drake said. Now that you say that, I did hear Cockabeel cursing Azazel a few times from retreating from the war. Middle said. I see, Riaz said with a hand on her chin. Silence fell on them. Issei then stood up and yawned. D-Drake said as Issei made his way up the stairs. He heard the girls reply goodnight. Issei took a quick shower and brushed his teeth. He was now wearing a sleeveless white shirt and boxers. Issei once again yawned as he entered his bedroom. He lied down on his bed and looked at the ceiling. He now had 4 girls that moved in his house. Just as D-Drake said, his life is getting more and more levier. D-Drake said inside Issei's head. It was also the last thing that Issei heard before letting sleep consume him. Issei opened his eye and looked at the ceiling for a small while. He tried to get up from his bed, but there was some weight on his right arm. Issei looked to his right and saw Rias, on his bed, naked and sleeping peacefully. Issei just gave a quiet sigh. What was wrong with this girl? He managed to free his arm from Ria's grasp without waking her. He exited his room and walked to the bathroom. He gave 2 knocks on the door. "It's occupied," a voice said from inside the bathroom. Issei recognized the voice of Midult. Issei went downstairs, yawning a bit. Once he got in the kitchen, he saw Asia making breakfast with a smile. Asia noticed him coming down the stairs and looked at him, her smile widening a bit. "Ah, good morning, Issei. Breakfast will be done shortly," she said as she went back to cooking. Issei gave her a small nod and walked inside the living room, where he saw Warner watching TV. Issei sat across her, waited for Asia to finish cooking breakfast. Warner snapped out of her daze when she saw Issei sitting across her. "Morning, kid. Didn't notice you there," Warner said with a smile on her daze. Issei looked at her and nodded back at her, his own way of saying good morning. He then turned his attention back to the TV. "Issei, why did you sneak out on me? And why didn't you wake me up?" Issei then heard a voice behind him. He was also hugged from behind as he felt his head sink in a pair of big S. The owner of the voice was Rias, if you haven't figured that out by now. Issei could only sigh at the girl's actions. It was way too early in the morning for this. "Breakfast's ready," Asia said from the kitchen. Rias let go of Issei and walked to the kitchen, Warner and Issei following behind. Nell was also there and she already had her food in front of her. Once everyone sat down, they dug in. Breakfast consisted of miso soup, bread and fish. Asia, your cooking is the best," Midult said with a big smile on her face. "I agree, your cooking is very good," Warner said as she took a bite from her bread. "Thank you, Midult, Warner," Asia said with a small blush. Once they finished breakfast, they put their plates in the sink. Rias, Issei and Asia went upstairs. Issei had time to take a quick shower. Once he finished his shower, he went back in his room and changed into his school clothes. Issei went downstairs and saw Rias and Asia waiting for him near the door. "Well, we're leaving. Goodbye," Asia said as she exited the house with Issei and Rias. They heard Midult and Warner say their goodbyes. Issei then closed the door. Diedrag said inside Issei's head. Issei mentally nodded. Diedrag asked. Issei again mentally nodded. Diedrag said as his voice faded away. Issei nodded again, though he didn't think that he'll be able to contain his rage when the time comes. Before they knew it, they reached the entrance of the school. Once they passed through the gate, they were automatically showered with shouts from both female and male students. "Why is Hayao with Princess Rias and Asia?" a female student asked in shock. "Hayao, you bastard. Get away from them, you monster," a male student shouted in anger. "Alwa, I wanted to date Issei," another female voice said in disappointment. Issei's left eye began to twitch. He was once again the center of attention. "Hyoudouubastard." Two voices were heard. Issei looked to his right and saw the perverted duo, Madohama and Matsuda, running at him with fists raised and anger across their face. Issei sighed. He didn't have time for this. Issei dodged a punch from Madohama and kicked his left leg, making him lose his balance and fall to the ground. Matsuda threw his punch at Issei, who stopped the punch with his hand. Issei then pulled him down and swipe-kicked Matsuda, causing him to have the same outcome like his comrade. "How the hell are you do strong?" Matsuda asked with gritted teeth. Issei just shrugged his shoulders. Before he could walk away, he felt someone tap his shoulder 2 times. He turned around and saw Rias. "Issei, I have to go to my class now. Let's meet up in the clubhouse," Rias said with a smile. Issei only nodded. "Oh, just to let you know, Asia is in the same class as you, so take care of her," Rias said with a smile as she walked away. Issei nodded and looked at Asia. Issei mentioned for Asia to follow him. Asia complied and began to follow Issei. Once they entered their classroom, they sat on their chairs and waited for the bell to ring, which did after a few seconds. After about a minute, Mrs. Keiko walked in the classroom. She had a few books in hand. "Good morning, class. Today, we'll be continuing our session on Greek mythology, so open your history books on page 57. Mrs. Keiko said as she opened her own book. The students did the same thing. Issei opened his book, but he didn't pay any attention to the lesson. He just stared out the window. His eyes then narrowed. Outside were 2 strangers. One of them had something big wrapped around in a cloth which was on her back. The other had a sword strapped around the hip or thigh. Issei couldn't tell the gender of the ones with the giant thing on her back, but he knew that the other one was a woman, because he could see her long brown pigtails at the side of her hood. He couldn't identify the other person though, but he gave a wild guess that it was a woman as well. "Issei, can you please pay attention to the lesson?" Mrs. Keiko shouted. Issei turned to look at her for a small moment. Once she turned around to write something on the whiteboard, he turned and looked outside once more. Though the 2 weren't there anymore, Issei gave a quiet sigh as he looked towards the whiteboard so he could write whatever Mrs. Keiko wrote. Lunchtime. The bell finally rang, signaling lunchtime. Issei stood up from his chair and walked towards Asia's desk. Asia saw him walking towards her and smiled. "Issei, are you going to the old school building?" Asia asked. Issei nodded. "Okay, then let's go," Asia said as she and Issei walked out of the classroom. Once they got to the old school building, Issei noticed Asia flinch a bit. Issei turned and looked at her with a raised brow. "Don't worry, it's nothing. I just felt weird for a moment there," Asia said. Issei nodded slowly. They walked up the stairs and headed to the main office. Once they got there, Issei gave 2 knocks on the door. "Excuse me for a moment. Whoever it is, can you please come back later? We have some rather important business to do." They both heard Ria's voice say, President, why do you want us to leave?" Asia asked with a stutter. "Oh, it's just you, Asia. It's okay, you can enter," Ria said. Issei pushed the door open. His eyes narrowed when he saw who was sitting at the sofa on the right. It was the 2 strangers from this morning. They had their hoods down, so Issei could clearly see their faces. One of them had brown hair that was fixed in pigtails. She also had pink eyes. The other one, who was also a girl, had yellow eyes and blue hair, some green that covered the center of her forehead. She was also the one that was carrying that large thing on her back, which was on her side right now. "Ah, Issei, you're with her as well," Ria said with a smile. Issei could tell that her smile was one of relief. Wait a minute, that is Issei. There's no way. He looks absolutely different from the last time I saw him," the girl with pink eyes said with shock in her voice. "Irina, you should know that we shouldn't make friends with devils," the other girl said. "I know Zenobia, but this is my childhood friend that we're talking about," the girl known as Irina said with a smile, causing the other girl, Zenobia, to sigh. "Actually, Issei is not a devil. I offered him to become one, but he refused the offer," Ria said with closed eyes. "Oh, thank God that you aren't a devil, Issei. Do you remember me? I used to be your neighbor 10 years ago," Irina said with a smile as she approached Issei. Issei looked at her confused. He put 2 fingers at the side of his forehead, but he couldn't remember a girl named Irina. Diedrag said inside Issei's head. Issei was still confused though, which weirded Diedrag a bit. Issei then felt Diedrag's eyes widen a bit. He then manifested the boosted gear on Issei's arm. Diedrag said out loud, causing everyone to look confused, except for Zenobia. The Red Dragon Emperor was the only thing Zenobia said, but not from shock, but from interest. "What do you mean, Red Dragon Emperor? What's happening to Issei?" Riaz asked worried. Diedrag said, wait, what kind of illnesses does Issei have?" Asia asked. She was extremely worried. I also want to know," Irina said, as equally worried. Before Riaz could answer, Diedrag answered for her. Diedrag listed Issei's illnesses. Irina's eyes widened as a few tears escaped her eyes. She had a hand on her mouth as she took a few steps backwards. No, that can't be true," Irina said, falling to her knees. Asia was also sobbing as she hugged Issei, who remained with a confused look on his face, not paying any attention to his surroundings. Diedrag said. Everyone fell into silence after the reveal. "What is the illness that just showed up then?" Aquino asked. Diedrag said, "Are you sure that it's his dementia? Are you sure that it's not just him forgetting about her?" Riaz asked, her face containing both shock and sadness. Diedrag revealed the real reason as to why Issei passed out after the raiding game. Issei suddenly shook his head violently, causing everyone to look at him with worry. Once he stopped shaking his head, he looked at everyone in the room, his usual look appearing once more. "Issei, do you have any idea as to what has happened to you right now?" Riaz asked. Issei looked at her for a moment, and then nodded his head slowly, his hair covering his eyes a bit. "Are you going to be okay? I can call a doctor from the underworld if you want," Riaz offered. Issei only shook his head. He then looked at Irina, who was still on her knees, crying. Issei walked towards her and put his arm on her shoulder, shaking it a bit. It caught Irina's attention as she looked up and stared into Issei's eyes. "Issei, what happened to you? What happened to the boy I used to play with? What happened to the boy I used to share my laughter with? You are not him. Please bring him back to me, please." Irina trailed off, but stopped as she hung her head lower and continued to cry. Issei then put his hand behind her neck and pulled her into a small hug. Irina continued to cry and sob. No one in the room dared to pull them apart, not even Zenobia. This was the first time she saw her partner like this. She also felt a bit sad for her as well. Irina's eyes then snapped open as she pulled away from Issei, shock on her face. The others looked at her in confusion. Diedrag began to say, but stopped. This was a big shock, even to him. What did Issei do?" Riaz asked with urgency. Neither Irina nor Diedrag said anything. Issei patted Irina on the head and stood up. He walked towards Asia and stood beside her. Zenobia noticed Asia. "It just occurred to me. Are you the witch Asia Argento, the former holy priestess?" Zenobia asked, causing Asia to flinch at being called a witch. "Yes, it's me," Asia said with sad eyes. "Don't worry, I won't tell the higher-ups that we saw you here. Though you did fall lower than any of us expected. For you to become a devil. Do you still believe in God?" Zenobia asked. "Too did believe in him my whole life. I can't stop believing," Asia said. "Is that so? Then allow me to cut you down with my holy sword, Durandal. Maybe God will forgive you and will allow you to enter heaven," Zenobia said as she unwrapped the giant sword from the cloth and pointed it towards Asia, who had a fearful expression on her face. Issei then approached Zenobia with rage in his eyes. How dare she say such words to Asia? Issei tried to punch her, but she jumped backwards. She proceeded to attack Issei, but Irina stood in front of her, her sword drawn out. "Zenobia, please stop. We didn't come here to kill devils nor Issei. We came here to stop Cockabeel," Irina said. Issei's eyes widened, his rage disappearing. Diedrag asked. "We still don't know that yet. We're planning on searching tomorrow." "Why are you asking?" Irina asked. Diedrag said. Irina's eyes widened at the reveal. Cockabeel was the one that caused Issei to be this way. Irina clenched her sword to her chest and gritted her teeth. Diedrag said. We appreciate the offer, but we can't accept help from a devil, Zenobia said. Diedrag chuckled a bit. Diedrag said. This caused Zenobia to put a hand on her chin. I haven't really thought about that. All right, we will accept your help, Zenobia said with a smile. Irina also smiled, but she also had a few tears in her eyes. Red Dragon Emperor, are you sure that you want to ally yourself with exorcists? Riaz asked. Diedrag said. Riaz stood still. She and her peerage knew what is going to happen if Issei gets his revenge. She still has time though. She can still change his mind. All right, I trust you, Riaz said. Before you two leave, mind if I have a spar with one of you? Kiba said with a smile, though everyone could feel the killing intent radiating from him. And who are you supposed to be? Zenobia asked. I'm your senior, though I was a failure, Kiba said with the same painted smile. Issei and the rest of the orc went to the back of the old school building, since Kiba wanted to fight one of the two exorcists. Zenobia was the one that stepped up to the challenge. Aquino, is the barrier set up? We don't want anyone to see this, Riaz said. Aquino nodded. Zenobia unwrapped Durandal from its cloth and stabbed the stone floor with it. Kiba summoned his own sword while glaring at Durandal. Are you ready, Knight of Gremory? Zenobia asked. When she said that, Kiba started to laugh like a maniac. Everyone besides Issei was looking at him, worried. The thing that I have wanted to destroy my whole life is right in front of me. Why wouldn't I be ready? Kiba said as he got in his stance. Zenobia also got in her own fighting stance, raising her sword from the ground. Kiba dashed towards Zenobia with all his speed and clashed his sword with hers. Kiba's sword now had a few cracks in it, making his eyes narrow. Zenobia pushed Kiba away with Durandal. She then immediately struck back downwards with Durandal, shattering Kiba's sword into pieces. Kiba jumped backwards away from Zenobia and dropped his broken sword to the ground. He summoned another one and dashed forwards once more. Kiba went to strike her downwards, though he faked his attack and hit Zenobia in her left shoulder, successfully cutting her. Zenobia didn't even flinch at the wound caused by the knight. Instead, she swung her sword to the left. Kiba blocked the attack at the last possible second, though it caused the destruction of his second sword. Kiba growled in frustration at the sight of his broken sword. He summoned another one as he dropped the broken one. This time it was Zenobia who dashed towards Kiba. Kiba used his speed to his advantage and disappeared before Zenobia could reach him. He reappeared behind her, only to disappear again when Zenobia turned around and swung Durandal. Kiba then started to pick up his pace. He kept on disappearing, making a few illusions of himself. Zenobia was now finding it difficult to strike Kiba. Everywhere she turned, she could see a brand new illusion from Kiba's speed. Zenobia then felt a bit of pain in her lower left leg. She looked down and saw her knee was bleeding a bit. She then felt her right shoulder being cut this time. RHHH, Zenobia shouted as she swung Durandal in a circle. She managed to find Kiba, who blocked her attack. His sword managed to stay intact this time. Kiba was pushed backwards by the force behind Durandal's power. He landed on his feet and looked up at Zenobia, panting. I have to compliment you, Knight of Gremory. You have managed to cut me more than I have expected. But, this is where I must end it. This one final attack will determine the outcome of this battle, Zenobia said, going back to her stance. Kiba narrowed his eyes as he also got back in his stance. Kiba and Zenobia started to run towards each other. They then jumped into the air and clashed their swords. They both landed, their backs facing each other. Zenobia was looking forwards, while Kiba was looking down, his blonde hair covering his eyes. Suddenly, Kiba's sword shattered as he fell to the ground, a small wound on his lower stomach, which was caused by Durandal. Zenobia started to walk towards the white cloth which was used to wrap Durandal. She grabbed it and proceeded to wrap the giant Excalibur. And no, you are not leaving. I must destroy that sword, Kiba shouted as he slowly picked himself off the ground. He summoned another sword in his hand. Kiba, please stop this, Issei heard Riaz mutter. Diedrag said inside Issei's head. Issei raised a mental eyebrow. Diedrag said, no, don't listen to that stupid dragon. I want you to watch this. You remember, don't you? This is how you are, or should I be saying this is what you are still. You both lie for the sake of revenge, and in the end, you both might end up failing. I had the voice said inside Issei's head. Issei gritted his teeth and grabbed his head. He didn't want to admit it, but the voice had a point. He and Kiba could relate in a way. They both lived thus far for the sake of revenge. Issei, are you all right? Issei turned to his left and saw Irina looking at him with worried eyes. Issei removed his hand from his head and nodded at her. Was it the voice in your head? Irina asked in a shaky voice, which was barely noticeable. Issei only nodded. He then disappeared. When Kiba was about to run towards Zenobia, Issei reappeared in front of him, stopping him. Issei, get out of my way. You will not deny me my revenge, Kiba said as he glared at Issei, in which he returned back. Issei did not budge. He stayed firm where he was. Issei, if you do not remove yourself, then I'll be forced to attack you as well, Kiba said, pointing his sword at Issei. Issei only stood where he was, still not moving. He was just glaring but at Kiba. Kiba then sighed. You leave me no choice then. It was the only thing Kiba said as he dashed at Issei. Kiba raised his sword and brought it down on Issei's shoulder. He was very surprised to see that his sword broke when it made contact with Issei. Once the broken part of his sword fell to the ground, Issei tackled Kiba to the floor and punched him 2 times in the face, creating a small crater. Kiba was still conscious, but he could not move. Issei turned towards Asia, who was in shock at what Issei did. He pointed at Kiba and walked back to the group. Asia understood what he meant and ran towards Kiba to heal his injuries. When Issei got close to the group, Rias was the one that walked towards him. Despite me not approving of your method to stop Kiba, I still thank you for stopping him from injuring himself any further, Rias said with a small frown. Issei only shrugged his shoulders, saying that he couldn't think of a more non-violent way to stop the knight. Asia finished healing Kiba's injuries. The knight stood up, but his hair shadowed his eyes while he was gritting his teeth in anger. Irina, I think it's about time we departed. Rias Gremory, I hope that you don't interfere on our matters. Red Dragon Emperor, meet us tomorrow in the town. We will be waiting. Also Irina, curious question, what did the Red Dragon Emperor do back at the clubroom? Zenobia asked her partner with a raised brow. Irina blushed and looked to the side, playing with her fingers. WLH, he just gave me a PP peck on the cheek, Irina said, her blush darkening. What? Issei, why don't you kiss me on the cheek? Rias asked Issei, hurt. Issei sighed and face-palmed. Issei then looked towards Kiba, who was starting to walk away. Rias also noticed. Yudo, don't leave. You're the Knight of Gremory after all. It would be troublesome if you turned into a stray. Rias shouted as she walked up to him. I was able to escape thanks to my friends. This is the reason that I pull their regrets into my demonic swords, Kiba said as he used his speed to disappear from Rias' sight. Yudo, Rias muttered sadly, her head hanging low. Don't worry, President. I'm sure that Kiba will come back to you, Asia said with a smile. Yes, let's hope so, Rias said as she raised her head. Oh, I almost forgot. Red Dragon Emperor, you should beware. The White One has awakened. So, I suggest that you are aware, since he might interfere in your fight with Cockabeel, Zenobia said. She wore her cloak and walked inside the forest. Goodbye, Issei. I'll see you tomorrow, Irina said as she gave a quick hug to Issei. She then followed Zenobia into the forest. Issei, I'll ask you one last time, are you sure that you want to work with exorcists? I mean, they can help you track down Cockabeel faster, but are you sure that you can trust them? Rias asked, clearly worried for Issei. Issei nodded, saying that he wanted to work with them. Rias sighed, but then smiled. Alright, I'm going to trust you on this. Now, Asia, Issei, let's go home, Rias said. They all grabbed their bags from the clubroom and headed towards Issei's house. Before they could leave, Asia invited Aquino and Kaneko to have dinner at Issei's house. My, this is my first time that I enter Issei's house, Aquino said with her usual smile. Remember, Aquino, there are fallen angels living with us. Try and act friendly around them, Rias said to her queen. Of course, President, Aquino said, but her smile was gone and was replaced with disgust. Once they reached Issei's house, Issei unlocked the door with his key and entered his house, the others following behind. Ah, you're all back, I see, Calawarner said nervously, failing to hide a giant book that was in her hands. Middlet was also nervous. What are you reading there, Calawarner, Middlet? Asia asked. Before she could answer, she looked at Issei with a sigh. Please don't be angry. It was the only thing she said. She then showed everyone the book that she was reading. It wasn't even a book. It was Issei's family photo album. Issei widened his eyes at the sight of the book. He hasn't seen the pictures on that thing in over 2 years. Issei walked calmly towards her and grabbed the photo album from her hands. He then looked at it for a while and slowly opened it to a random page. The page that he stumbled on was his 4th birthday. Issei saw a picture of him with his mom and dad, all smiling at the camera. His mind started to travel to his 4th birthday. How times have changed. He used to be a happy kid. Now he was just an empty shell. He used to have plenty of positive emotions. Now, the only emotions that he feels are anger, pain, and grief. Run while you still can. Remember my name. Cockabeel, Cockabeel, Cockabeel. When I kill Cockabeel, I will kill myself and join my parents in the afterlife. Do it, end your life. It's the smartest thing that you'll be doing in your pathetic life anyway. Issei. Issei was snapped back to reality by Rias, who was looking into his eyes with worry evident in her face. Issei, are you all right? You suddenly dropped the photo album and you look dead, Rias said. Issei grabbed his head and sighed. He looked at Rias and nodded his head, saying that he was all right. Are you sure? I'm really worried about you, Issei, Rias said as she cupped Issei's cheeks in her palms. Issei pushed her hands away from his face and glared at her. Rias looked away, sadness evident in her face. I'll prepare dinner, Asia said as she looked at Issei. She was also quite worried. Let me help you, Asia, Aquino said with a smile. Everybody went to the living room and watched TV whilst they were waiting for dinner to be ready. Issei could see Rias glance at him a few times. She must be really worried about him. Though Issei just ignored her. Issei, can you go to the store real quick? I need you to buy some things, Aquino said from the kitchen. Issei stood up from the couch and went to the kitchen. Aquino handed him a small piece of paper that had everything that he had to buy. Issei opened his door and headed to the nearby store. Once he bought everything that he needed, he exited the store and started to walk back to his house. Suddenly, he collided with someone. They both stumbled back a bit. Once Issei raised his head, he was met with a pretty familiar face. A tall man stood in front of him, appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee. He was wearing a black leather jacket with black pants. "Shit, sorry about that. Oh, it's you, kid. It has been a while," the man said with a grin once he realized who he collided with. Dietrich responded, "Ah, I see that you haven't spoken yet since the last time we met. How have you been doing, Red Dragon Emperor?" Azazel asked, the grin remaining on his face. Dietrich said. Azazel stopped grinning, his expression turning serious. "I have always suspected that Cockabeel wanted to start another war between the factions. It seems that he still resents me from retreating first from the war. Though even if he didn't want to start another war, I suspect that you two would still go after him for what he did to you," Azazel said, pointing at Issei. Dietrich asked, making Issei's eyes narrow at Azazel. Azazel only smirked and chuckled a bit. "No, I'll actually respect your decision. But I have to ask a very big favor from you, kid," Azazel said. Issei only looked at him, wondering what Azazel wanted. "If possible, could you let Cockabeel live once you fight him?" "Yes, I know it's going to be impossible for you, but I want to interrogate him," Azazel said. Dietrich said. Azazel sighed, though a smirk was on his face. It was worth a try. "Well, I have to go. Good night, kid, and it was good to see you again," Azazel said as he walked past Issei. Issei stared at Azazel's retreating form for a small while. He then started to walk back to his house. Once he reached his house, he unlocked the door with his key and entered his house. He gave the bag that he was holding to Akino and sat back down on the couch. After a small while, Asia called everyone to the table. Dinner was finally ready. Dinner consisted of curry rice, yakizakana, and udon. They all sat in silence while they ate their food. Dinner was finished rather quickly. Akino and Kaneko said their goodnights as they left. Issei yawned. He walked up the stairs and entered the bathroom. He took a shower and brushed his teeth once he finished his shower. He yawned once more as he opened the door to his bedroom. He lied down on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Just as he felt his eyes starting to close, his door opened. Issei looked and saw Riaz enter his room. She started to strip from her school uniform. Issei sighed and closed his eyes. He felt Riaz hug his left arm. "Issei, can you promise me something?" Riaz asked. Issei opened his eyes and looked at her. "Promise me that you'll never leave me. Promise NW that you won't end your life when you kill Cockabeel. Please, I don't want to lose you," Riaz said in a shaky voice. Issei only sighed. This was a promise that he couldn't keep, sadly. Slowly, they both entered deep sleep. Issei's eye fluttered open, the sunlight hitting his face. He squinted his eye a bit, the sun burning his eye. After a few seconds, he fully opened his eye, which adjusted to the bright light. Today was Saturday. As much as he wanted to rest for the day, he had work to do. He looked to his left and saw Riaz, sleeping naked and peacefully. She was hugging his arm like it was a teddy bear. Issei managed to free his hand without waking her up, just like yesterday. He looked at his alarm clock and saw that it was 7:36 o'clock. He stood up from his bed and exited his bedroom. He heard no noise from downstairs, which meant that everyone was still sleeping. He went to the bathroom and took a shower. After that, he brushed his teeth. He went downstairs and headed to the kitchen. He opened his fridge and grabbed the milk. He then opened the cupboard and grabbed a bowl and a spoon. He then grabbed a box of chocolate cereal and poured some in the bowl. He poured milk. He put the milk back in the fridge and sat down on the chair. As he was eating, he noticed a small bottle on the counter. More specifically, thorazine. He hasn't taken a pill out of that bottle since they went to train in the mountains for the raiding game against Riser. After finishing his cereal, he quickly drank the milk. He put the bowl in the sink and filled it with water. His attention went back to the small bottle on the counter. He grabbed the medicine and stared at it for a small while. He knew what he needed to do. Just do it already. I know what you're thinking. Just be done with it. You've already outgrown it. And it doesn't have any effect on me anymore. Ha ha ha. Take as many as you want. It still won't have any effect on me. The voice in his head shouted. Issei could just feel its sadistic, wide smirk. He poured all the pills that remained in the small bottle in his hand. He then put them all in his mouth and swallowed. He threw the empty bottle to the ground and sat back down on the chair, his hands on his forehead. Dietrich asked rhetorically. Issei, though, nodded. Dietrich asked once more. Issei only sighed. He knew this wasn't a good idea, but he might fight Cockabeel sooner than he thought. And if he comes out victorious, he will end his life. And if he loses, then he dies. Win or lose, the end is still the same for him, because he will die no matter what. Dietrich said nothing. He wasn't going to stop him. Even if he tried, he knew that it wouldn't change his mind. So when the time finally comes, he'll just move on to another host. Yawn. Good morning, kid. Issei looked towards the stairs and saw Calla Warner, rubbing her eyes with a small yawn. Issei nodded at her, saying good morning in his own way. Without saying another word, Issei stood up from where he was sitting and went upstairs to get changed. Calla Warner walked into the kitchen and started to make her coffee. Once Issei got to his room, he saw Riaz sleeping still. He sighed and walked up to his bed. He shook her a bit, causing her to stir. 5 more minutes, Riaz muttered as she turned to the side. Issei sighed once more. He shook her one more time, only to get no response from her. Issei turned her on his side and shook her again. This finally got Riaz to open her eyes. She stared at Issei with a sleepy expression. Issei, what's the matter? It's still way too early. Riaz said, her eyes at the brink of closing. Issei snapped his fingers twice, stopping Riaz from falling asleep. He then points at the door. You want me to leave the room? Why? Riaz asked in confusion, though her sleepy expression remained. Issei then pointed at a pair of clothes near his bed. A pair of blue striped jeans and a blue and white t-shirt, which had a name of a band on it, the band being Gemini Syndrome. Oh, you want to change? You can change with me here though. I don't mind, Ria said with a smile on her face. Issei sighed, irritated. He walked up to her and picked her up bridal style, causing Ria to blush in surprise. He dropped her lightly to the ground outside of his room and closed his door, making sure to lock it. Ria pouted. She walked to the left of the hallway in order to wake up Asia. She opened the door and walked towards Asia's bed. She put a hand on her shoulder and smiled. Asia, it's time to wake up, Ria said gently. Asia stirred awake and slowly opened her green eyes and looked at Ria's. President. Good morning, Asia said as she stood up from her bed and rubbed her eyes with a small yawn. Good morning to you as well, Asia. It's time to make breakfast. I'll be waiting downstairs, Ria said as she walked out Asia's bedroom. Issei unlocked his door and walked out his bedroom, wearing his clothes. He yawned while he walked down the stairs. He looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was 8:19 o'clock. It was probably best if he leaves to meet up with the two exorcists. He grabbed his spare key from the counter and walked to the front door. Just as he was about to open it, someone interrupted him. Issei, are you going to meet up with the two exorcists now? Issei turned around and saw that it was Ria's who asked the question. He nodded in her. She walked up to him and gave him a quick hug. Once she broke the hug, she looked at him with a worried face. Come back to me safe. It was the only thing she said. She then walked back into the kitchen when she saw Asia coming down the stairs. Goodbye, Issei. Please make sure not to hurt yourself, Asia said with a concerned face, but smiled nonetheless. Issei nodded at her and opened the door. He stepped out of his house and closed the door, putting the spare key into his pocket. Town center. Issei quickly walked to the town center. He began to look around for the two exorcists, but had no luck as of yet. Once he was about to move to another location, he heard a voice calling his name. Issei turned around and saw Kaneko step out from behind a small tree. She was wearing a white shirt with a small skirt. Issei looked at her with a raised brow. Kaneko took a breath and looked at Issei in the eyes. Are you looking for the two exorcists? Kaneko asked. Issei nodded. Are you also going to help with Kiba? Kaneko asked hopefully. Issei shook his head. He then pointed to himself, saying that he is only doing this for himself, not for anyone else. Please Issei, please help Kiba as well. I don't want to lose him, Kaneko said with a pleading voice. Issei could only sigh. Ddraig said. Issei sighed once more at Ddraig's words. He looked at Kaneko and nodded his head. Thank you, Issei. Kaneko then flashed one of her rare smiles. Issei only waved her off and mentioned for her to follow him. They walked around for a bit in silence, but they saw no sign of the two exorcists. Just as they were about to enter a cafe, they saw two hooded figures sitting on the paving. They had their hands up. Please help God's lost lambs. The one on the right, Zenovia, said. Any small amount is gladly appreciated by the Lord. The one on the left, Irina, said. People that were passing by were looking at the duo with weird eyes. Issei and Kaneko can't blame them though. It was weird seeing two hooded girls asking for money. The two exorcists put their hands down and sighed. I knew that this would be difficult. People in Japan don't share our strong belief in God, Zenovia said. I know, but we have to get money some way or another, Irina said. If you hadn't wasted all our money on that fake painting, then we wouldn't be in this situation. Zenovia accused Irina, pointing at the painting that was on Irina's right. What? This painting is an authentic painting of St. Peter, Irina said, defending herself. Even Issei, who didn't know how St. Peter looked like, knew immediately that the painting was fake. It was very poorly drawn in the canvas that it was painted and had a few holes in it. Irina, just look at the state of it. St. Peter does not look like that, Zenovia shouted. Yes, it does look like him. Look right here, Irina shouted back, pointing at a random line in the painting. You're pointing at nothing. Just admit that you're in the wrong, Zenovia said. Just then both their stomachs screamed in hunger. They both bent their heads down and held their stomachs tight. Let's stop for now and let's find a way to get money so we can get something to eat, Zenovia muttered. Agreed, Irina responded in the same tone as Zenovia. Issei could only face palm at the situation in front of him, while Kaneko was looking confused. Issei gave an irritated sigh as he and Kaneko approached the two exorcists. Besto restaurant. It's just like I thought. Japanese food is the best, Zenovia said while she was eating a bowl of rice. See, I told you that it would be delicious, Irina said while she was eating her own bowl of rice. Issei and Kaneko were staring at the two eating their meal. Issei ordered a cup of coffee only, while Kaneko ordered nothing. Once the duo finished their meal, they leaned back into their chairs and let out happy sighs. This was the best, thank you again, Issei, Irina said with a big smile. Issei waved off her thanks. Now, before we get to business, why is the devil of Ria's Gremory with you? Zenovia asked as she looked at Kaneko. I want to help Kiba. The night you fought, Kaneko said. And what are you planning to do so you can help your friend? Zenovia asked with a raised brow. When the whole ordeal with Kakabila ends, can you please leave us an Excalibur so we can try and destroy? Kaneko asked. Zenovia put a hand on her chin. Well, I suppose we could leave one to you, if you can destroy it, that is. Just don't let the higher-ups find out. We don't want to get into trouble. But in return, you will aid us in this search for Kakabila, Zenovia said. Zenovia, are you sure about that? She is a devil, you know, Irina said. Zenobia sighed and looked at her partner. Irina, to be honest, finding Cockabeel on our own, plus the Red Dragon Emperor, is not going to be an easy task. We are going to need all the help that we can get. Zenobia said. You're right, but still accepting help from a devil is. Irina started, but didn't finish. I accept, but I will help because of Issei, Kaneko said as she looked at Issei, who looked back at her. Issei, it will be sad if you disappeared as well. A lot of people will be sad, including me, so don't end yourself. Kaneko said as she looked at Issei with a sad expression. Though Kaneko looked sad, Issei had made his mind a long time ago. Nobody will be able to change his mind. He just sighed and shook his head, making Kaneko's expression turn even more depressed. I'll call Kiba and tell him to come here. Excuse me, Kaneko muttered as she stood up and walked outside. She came back after a few seconds. Kiba also arrived after a short while, making everyone assume that he used his speed as a knight to come here a lot faster. He sat down and ordered his own coffee. So is it true? Will you leave us an Excalibur here to destroy? Kiba asked as he takes a sip of his coffee. Yes, if you can destroy it, that is, Zenobia said. Kiba then frowned. To be honest, I feel unsatisfied that you're willing to leave an Excalibur here, just like that. Kiba said. Now it was Zenobia's turn to frown. How rude. We are willing to cooperate with you. Be glad that you're not a stray, or else I would have already cut you down. Zenobia said. You say that like you could do it, Kiba said, glaring at the girl. Considering that I was the victor during our spar, I would say that it should be an easy task, Zenobia said with a small smirk. Before Kiba could argue any further, he and everyone else at the table felt Issei raise his aura a bit. It was more like a warning, Diedrag said, making sure that no other human were close to listen to them talking. Kiba, you hold a deep hatred for the Holy Sword Project, don't you? Irina asked. Obviously, Kiba said, now glaring at Irina. But we benefited from it. We can now wield the Excaliburs, Irina said. They killed the failures of that inhuman project. I lived so that I could avenge them one day, Kiba shouted. True, the Holy Sword Project was the most inhuman thing that the church has ever done. Once they found out about the murders, they exiled the man who was in charge of the project, Zenobia said, taking a sip of her tea that she ordered a few minutes ago. Who was in charge? Who exactly am I looking for? Kiba asked. His name is Balba Galilei. After he was exiled, he went and is now still working for the fallen angels, earning him the name of Archbishop. Irina answered. So if I kill Balba, then that means I will finally avenge my fallen friends, Kiba said, fresh determination in his eyes. All right, I think it's about time we head out. If you want to join us, Knight of Gremory, then you can, Zenobia said as she and Irina stood up from their chairs. Can you give us a few minutes? Kiba asked. Zenobia nodded and walked out the restaurant with Irina, leaving the three others to themselves. Kiba looked at Kaneko. Kaneko, why did you do this? Kiba asked in a low voice. Because I care for you, Kiba. It will be sad if you become a stray, Kaneko said, putting on the saddest expression that she could muster. But I don't want you guys to get involved in my own personal business, Kiba said. Kiba, we are a peerage and peerages are like family. So please don't leave us, Kaneko said. Kiba this time laughed weakly and closed his eyes. Ahaha, I give up. If you say that and look at me those sad eyes, then I won't have any reason to refuse. Thank you, Kaneko, Kiba said with a small smile on his face, causing Kaneko to smile back at him. They all stood up and rejoined the exorcists outside. So, where does our search begin? Kiba asked. There's a church nearby where the bodies of ex-exorcists, one of them being Fried Salzin and another body of a fallen angel. We could begin our search there, Zenobia said. Issei then remembered the exorcists and the fallen angel, Donosik, that he killed when he went to save Asia. There's no real reason to investigate there. We already did a full investigation, Kiba said, not mentioning that Issei was the one that killed all the people at the church. So, you guys didn't find anything that can lead us to Cockabeel? Irina asked, a bit disappointed. If there was something, it probably died with that fallen angel, Kaneko said. Everyone except Issei nodded with what Kaneko said. So, is there anywhere else we could try and search? Kiba asked once more. Well, we could do small patrols near the churches, except for the one that is close to here. If anyone has a better idea, then feel free to speak up, Zenobia said, looking at the group. Nobody spoke. Very well, let's move on out then, Zenobia said once more. The group then started to walk away from the restaurant. Divided by. It's been a few hours now and they haven't seen or heard anything. All the churches that they patrolled were either in working hours or occupied by priests. Kiba sighed with Irina and Zenobia in disappointment. They didn't know where to look next. Well, where should we look now? Kiba asked. Zenobia sighed. Honestly, I have no idea. But for now, let's sit down to rest. We'll continue our search in a few minutes, Zenobia said. Kiba sighed once more and leaned on a nearby wall with his arms crossed. Issei also did the same, though he was the further away from the group. Kaneko just stood next to Kiba and pulled out a chocolate bar and started to eat it. Issei closed his eyes and cleared his thoughts. He wanted to try something that he was taught by Diedrag. Diedrag didn't really see it as a technique, as it was more of the dragon's hearing capabilities. He blocked out the sound that was around him and concentrated hard. He was starting to hear something. Boss Balba, this works, a voice he didn't recognize said. Yes, sure, I this before, the man who was Balba said. Issei opened his eyes and looked to his right. That was the direction that the two voices were coming from. Issei started to walk to the direction from where he heard the two voices. He didn't get very far though, as he was stopped by Zenobia. "Where do you think you're going, Red Dragon Emperor?" Zenobia asked. Issei turned around and looked at her. He then pointed at the direction he was going, earning a look of confusion from the others. Issei sighed and transformed his right arm into the boosted gear. Ddraig said, causing Kiba's eyes to widen in surprise. Kiba stood up immediately and summoned his sword, a look of determination and anger in his eyes. "Then what are waiting for? Let's go," Kiba said as he started to run towards the direction Issei pointed. The rest also started to run after the knight, not too far behind. After a few minutes of sprinting, they two voices were beginning to sound louder and clearer in Issei's ears. "Very good, we are almost done. A few more minutes and he'll be back," Balba said. "Boss, I feel someone is approaching us. Should we take care of it?" The unknown man said. "If they are here for us, then go ahead. Try to stall them for as long as you can," Balba said. Issei growled and began to run faster than everyone else. Ddraig said. Everyone nodded and began to run faster as well. Soon, they were met with an almost built church. There was no paint on the outside's walls and there were construction ladders on both sides of the church. The doors that were in front were blown up. Once they got a bit closer, around 10 fallen angels came out the front door of the church, all of them summoning their light spears. "Attack! Kill them all!" the unknown fallen angel shouted, causing the other fallen to throw their light spears. Everyone was easily able to dodge the light spears. Zenobia pulled out Excalibur Destruction, whilst Irina pulled out Excalibur Mimic. Kiba summoned a random sword form as Infinite Armory and Kaneko took her fighting stance. Issei had already summoned his boosted gear, but he also extended his red dragon wings from his back. Kiba dashed at a fallen angel and swung his sword downwards, but the fallen quickly summoned his own light spear and used it to block Kiba's attack. Kiba kicked the fallen in the stomach, sending him a few feet back. He swung his sword to the left and blocked another incoming light spear. He then focused on the fallen that he kicked. He dashed once more and swung his sword, cutting the fallen on his chest. Kiba swung his sword again, cutting the fallen again on the chest for the second time. He swung again and again and again, until he swung one last time, sending the fallen to the ground, bleeding. The fallen did not stand up again. Kiba looked towards the other fallen that threw the light spear at him. He started to run towards him with his incredible speed. The fallen began to throw light spear, but Kiba dodged them easily by dashing to the right or to the left. Once Kiba was close enough, he dashed one last time towards the fallen and swung his sword to the right whilst crouching a bit, cutting his liver. The fallen fell to the ground with coming out of his mouth. "Arghhhh." Kiba looked behind him and saw Zenobia swinging her sword in a circle, successfully cutting down the fallen that was in front of her. Zenobia looked at her left and saw a fallen preparing to throw a light spear at her. Zenobia narrowed her eyes a bit and started to run towards the fallen. The fallen threw his light spear at her, but she raised her Excalibur Destruction over her face, making it take the attack. The light spear shattered when it made contact with the Excalibur. Once Zenobia got close enough to the fallen, she jumped and brought her sword downwards, cutting the fallen angel in half. She gave a slight smirk as she put the Excalibur over her shoulder. Issei was walking quickly towards a fallen. The fallen smirked at his defenseless state and threw the light spear in her hand. The light spear pierced Issei, but he continued to walk towards the now shocked fallen with fire in his eyes. Once Issei got close, he threw a powerful punch at the fallen which dropped her to the ground. Issei then stomped on her face 3 times, cracking her skull open. Issei raised his head and saw another fallen who wore an expression of shock and fear. Issei dashed towards him and uppercutted him. The punch was so powerful that it caused the fallen's eyes to pop out of their sockets. Issei and the rest looked at the last fallen that remained. He too wore an expression that held fear. The fallen extended his wings and tried to run away, but Issei was one step ahead of him. He also extended his wings and flew up towards the fallen. Issei grabbed one of his legs, causing him to stop flying. Issei then threw him back to the ground, causing a small crater from the impact. The fallen tried to stand up, but he couldn't. He didn't have the strength to move. Issei approached him and stomped on the back of the fallen's head 2 times. The others looked at each other and nodded. They ran towards the blown-up doors of the church. Upon entering, they saw a man wearing priest's clothes. He had gray hair with a mustache. "Balba Galilei," Kiba shouted at the ex-priest. Balba turned around and looked at the group with bored eyes. "I certainly am. Who are you, boy? You seem a bit familiar." Balba trailed off. This caused Kiba to narrow his eyes in anger. "Of course I should be. I was the one and only survivor from the Holy Sword Project," Kiba shouted. Balba's face held surprise for a moment, before quickly transforming into a smile. More of a smirk actually. "So, you were the survivor from that time. To meet here out of all place, I guess this is fate." "Fufu." Balba laughed. "Shut up. You will die right here and now. You will pay for what you did to my friends," Kiba shouted. He dashed towards Balba, whose face held no emotion, yet the smile still remained on his face. Just as Kiba was about to strike the old man, a flash passed by him. Kiba managed to block the incoming attack from the flash. Once he pushed the attacker away, he got a better look of his face. He had shoulder-length white hair and red eyes. He had a psychotic smile on his lips and in his hands was. "That's Excalibur." Rapidly, Irina shouted. Issei narrowed his eyes at the man. He has met him before, and they have fought before. Issei thought he killed him. He thought wrong. Hello, you shitty devils. Oh, and it appears that we have 2 exorcists wielding Excaliburs. Wonderful. I can't wait to try my new sword on you all. The man said, the psychotic smile on his face widening. Fried Salzen, what are you doing here? Zenobia asked the ex-exorcist. Well, after that shitty kid behind you defeated me, Fried said, pointing at Issei. Irina and Zenobia turned to him. Issei, when did you fight Fried? Zenobia asked. Dietrich said, you know that it's rude to interrupt someone whilst he's telling his tale, right? It just makes me want to rip you throats out even more. But, as I was saying, Cockabeel persuaded one of the most powerful conjurer that there is. With a little bit of black magic, he managed to bring me back to life. Though it came with a small price, unfortunately, Fried said. What kind of price? Kiba asked. I might be back to life, but it's only for a certain time limit. 4 hours is all I have. But don't worry, it's still enough for me to cut your head right off your bodies, Fried said as he laughed. Fried then dashed forwards with his now enhanced speed due to Excalibur rapidly. Kiba quickly raised his sword and blocked the downward slash. Kiba pushed Fried away and went for the counterattack, but Fried jumped back, again using his speed. Fried kept his maniac grin as he dashed towards Kiba once more. Kiba also dashed towards Fried, both swordsmen's swords colliding with each other with a loud clang. Kiba grunted a bit as pulled his sword back and quickly slashed Fried across his chest. Fried growled in pain, his maniac grin disappearing for a second. He grinned at Kiba once more and started to laugh. Kiba raised his brow at his enemy's actions. Fried stopped laughing and looked at Kiba with a ph-sitchel look in his eyes. This is so wonderful. I finally get to fight a worthy opponent, other than the kid that managed to kill me. I just wish that I could stay here and fight with you a bit longer. But unfortunately, me and the old man must depart. Let's go, old man Balba, Fried shouted. Suddenly a magic circle appeared beneath Fried and Balba. After a sudden flash of light, they both disappeared. Oh no, you two are not getting away that easily, Kiba said as he also disappeared using his speed. Hey, wait for us, Irina shouted as she and Zenobia started to follow the direction Kiba was heading. The only ones left in the church were Kaneko and Issei. Kaneko started to run after the 2 exorcists, but stopped when she noticed Issei standing still. Issei. Kaneko walked up to Issei and pulled on his sleeve. This seemed to catch his attention as he looked down at Kaneko. Should we follow them? Kaneko asked. Dietrich said. Issei and Kaneko walked out the church. They were met with a small surprise. Riaz and Aquino, along with Sona, a few other people Issei didn't recognize, were waiting for them outside. Once Riaz spotted them, she ran up to them. Kaneko, Issei, are you two okay? She asked with worry. Issei and Kaneko nodded. Fake the Mao. I feel so relieved. Though Kaneko, I did not give you orders to participate in the search with Issei and the exorcists. Why would you do that? Riaz asked in a stern voice. Kaneko looked at Riaz with a sad expression. I only wanted to help Issei and Kiba. I don't want them to disappear, she said. Ria's expression softened as she kneeled down to Kaneko's level and pulled her into a gentle hug. Oh Kaneko, you don't need to worry about that. Kiba and Issei are going nowhere, she said with a small smile. You don't sound very sure when you said Issei's name, Kaneko said. Ria's smile fell as she looked at Issei. He was leaning on the church wall, looking down at the floor with his hair covering his eyes. That's because I'm not. But I made a promise that I'll make sure to keep. I promise that I'll try my best in order to keep Issei from committing suicide. I won't give up on him, Riaz said, her smile returning as she stopped her hug with Kaneko. Now, since you went behind my back, I'll have to punish you, unfortunately, Riaz said. Kaneko nodded slowly and fell down on her palms and knees, sticking her butt out. Riaz covered her hand with devil energy and prepared to spank her. Issei caught her hand before she could lower it. She looked at Issei with a surprised expression. Dietrich said in an irritated tone. Riaz sighed as the devil energy disappeared from her hand. All right, she'll get her punishment when all of this is done and over. Don't expect me to forget, Riaz said. Kaneko stood up and looked at Issei. She nodded at him in thanks. So what now, Sona? Riaz asked. Sona put a hand on her chin and closed her eyes with a sigh. The best thing to do at the moment is wait and plan. We can't just rush at one of the fallen angel leaders, Sona said. Riaz nodded. All right everyone, let's head to the club room and think of our next move, Riaz said. Riaz summoned her magic circle, causing everyone to disappear from the church.